Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Day Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, wearing your Mickey Mouse shirt, in ode perhaps of the passing of Steamboat Willie into public domain. How do you feel about that, my friend?
I can't believe that happened.
I like just the passing. You know, like let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, if it's the passing of Steamboat Willie, and then like a picture fades into the shot for like, and it's like, you know, the RIP picture of him, you know, whatever year he was born to now.
I mean, it's like he's like 98. It was time.
Yeah, he lived a good life.
A good life.
Yeah, a
Plus,
good racist,
kind of
good racist life.
Everybody turned him into like this Five Nights at Freddy's monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, immediately.
Like immediately. Like 90% of the interpretations are just horrific.
Yeah.
So it is a death. It's a moving on.
It was cute when that happened with Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
But is that going to be what we do with everything that passes into the public domain now?
No, Colin. Not cute. No. Don't disrespect Pooh Bear like that.
No.
Pooh Bear is a saint. He is an innocent bear. He is too good for this world. I don't want to see any perversions of Pooh Bear. I'm already worried about Mickey, dude. They can't do that to King Mickey. It's going to be gross.
That's Brad Ellis, our most recent acquisition. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hey, no.
Welcome to the family, son.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, my friend. I took too big of a hit from the pen, so now I'm going to be coughing for the next 30 seconds. But in the meantime, you tell me how you are. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here. You're hosting Summon Sign, which is our new gaming podcast, agnostic gaming podcast, all about the games we're playing. First episode did wild. I told you in the Discord, maybe take it easy on the traffic, because it's getting more traffic than Sacred Symbols. I don't want to, you know, what am I doing here? You know,
I think it was the first episode bump. I think that's what it was.
Well, we'll see. I'm excited to have you here. You're very welcome here with us. And Dag, I don't know if you know this, and Gene, this might interest you too and we'll get to you in a moment, of course, about Brad is big Mega Man fan.
Yeah.
Big Castlevania fan.
Yes.
Wow.
And so we've already discussed, I mean, I already pitched one specific one that I want to do with him, which is putting in the order of how much we like them, every Robot Master. And do it on the podcast.
Master.
Every single
Robot Master tier list. Okay.
Yeah, 1 through 11. You know,
1 through 11.
And just sit here and just kind of graph them on and see what's going on, because it's very rare for me to meet someone who could actually talk about it the way I can talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, no offense to everyone out there.
Oh, but, I mean, I'm not on your level, Colin, but I do like Mega Man a lot.
Like if I asked, let me ask you this. If I asked you to name all of the Mega Man Robot Masters, I'm not going to ask you to do this, but for Mega Man 5, could you do it?
No, I'd have to replay them.
Oh, that's
it's been too long. It's been too long for me.
I couldn't do it even for Mega Man 2, and I obviously like love Mega Man 2.
Wow.
But, you know, like even for Mega Man 2, like Quick Man, that's about as far as
he's
I go.
the dopest. I have a Quick Man. Got a Quick Man figure up there.
Yeah.
He was my favorite.
Of course.
I don't know why, but when I was a kid, I remember my neighbor Tim making fun of me for this, that when Mega Man 2 came out, I used to jump around and go like quing quing when I would jump, like quing quing. And I don't know why I was doing that, but it was something to do with Quick Man. But Mega Man 5, let's see, that's Starman, Gyro Man, Crystal Man, Napalm Man, Charge Man, right? I'm missing a few of them.
Yeah.
But it's that group. I would have to go in order of how you beat them.
Skullman, yeah.
Skullman's Mega Man 4.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
4. Okay.
I get those confused a lot. Yeah, I'd have to replay a lot of them again just to refresh, because it's been a while since I've gone through them.
Yeah, me too.
I actually haven't replayed them.
How often do you replay them, Colin?
Mega Man?
Yeah.
Oh, Colin, yeah.
Also you, Brad, too, yeah.
Oh, dude, I haven't replayed them in a while. Probably when a collection came out. I don't remember which one, but a collection that did come out, I played through all of them again.
Yeah, I haven't played through them since I did a stream on Kind of Funny a long time ago where I beat them all back to back.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember that because I remember being so fucking tired by the end of that. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
And I was actually really proud of that. It's probably one of my most impressive gaming feats. I think I only died like 2 or 3 times the entire time.
Yeah, that's good.
That's huge.
That's really good. Yeah.
And Mega Man 1 is actually my weakest one and definitely the hardest Mega Man game. So like starting right there is like so tough. You know,
I will say Mega Man 1 is one of the worst Mega Mans in my opinion.
I
don't think it's good.
It's the worst one. He feels different. He drops like a rock in Mega Man 1.
That's why it's called.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah. I'm familiar with Castlevania much more though, so you don't have to worry about that.
Excellent.
Dude.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that Micah and I have been watching Netflix Castlevania. We'll get into that when I get into my topic because we're going to catch up with each other and see what everyone's been doing. I only watched the first 2 seasons when they came out and then I just stopped. And so we've gotten through those first 2 seasons again. Totally immaculate. I mean, I don't understand how they got it so good. You know? Why can't everyone do it this well? It's like why
Texas, mind you.
Yeah,
exactly. Think about how bad Mercury Steam did with Castlevania when they made those the Lords of Shadow games, right? And it's like, how can you get it anywhere? Brad, do you know the whole story with that? Do you know the story about me and Mercury Steam? Mercury Steam actually has mega,
right?
Mega beef with me to the point. I don't know if you know this, Gene, where like when I went to Gamescom and Gene Park, welcome Washington Post. When I went to Gamescom, I went to Gamescom a few times, but it was one of the years. I was supposed to go see Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. And I went to a meeting and you know how like at Gamescom they usually have like, you know, hot girls that are like the hosts and then they like talk to the real people that work there and they kind of so I was like, okay, cool, I'm here to see so-and-so, and then they go and they find a real person. I'm not like someone that you're supposed to prey on and try to like get to play a kiosk or whatever. And so a few minutes later the Konami PR people come out and say like, Mercury Steam won't see you. And I'm like, what do you mean they won't see me? And they're like, because IGN gave a 7 to Lords of Shadow. I didn't even review it. Damon Hatfield did. I actually really liked Lords of Shadow a lot more than the sequel.
But I score for it either, too.
I reviewed the 3DS game, which was an abomination.
Yeah. Was it Mirror of Fate or something?
Yeah, there's a
garbage.
Yeah, not good.
And I want to say it's not garbage, but I never finished it, so you know, whatever.
2.5D total abomination compared to what you expect out of 2D Castlevania. Totally,
definitely.
And I gave it a really bad review on IGN, and they were like, they think you're unfair, and they don't think you understand Castlevania. We don't want to see you. Or something. It turned into this whole thing. So ultimately, they had to dispatch their producer at Konami to IGN to like rectify things with me and show me the game later. And there was this whole weird thing about how they felt that we were unfair about Castlevania. And I was looking around the media landscape at the time, and I'm like, I don't think you have a bigger Castlevania fan anywhere at any of the English speaking outlets. I don't think you know what this is. Just classic Konami, right? Gene, you know this, and you know this too, Brad. What's the most classic Konami thing, in my opinion? The email addresses. Do you guys remember the email addresses, the Konami email addresses with the PR people? They were just random alphanumeric email addresses. So it would be like A1372B at Konami.com was like, you know, Jeff Smith, and he was a PR person. And the reason they did that was because they were afraid people were going to get poached, apparently.
Oh my god!
And it's like, I don't think anyone's trying to steal your talent at this point.
Yeah.
It's the old game.
You fired your most famous talent. So what do you want us to do?
Kojima fired and Iga fired. So like you and both are doing great. Anyway, Gene, it's so wonderful to see you. Happy New Year. I sent something in the mail for you yesterday.
I got a UPS notification and I haven't gotten it yet, but yeah.
Good. Yeah, I sent you a little surprise.
Ooh.
Let's just say Yo Joe. Yeah.
Oh man. No way, dude.
G.I. Joe's?
Yeah, I sent him a little something. He'll get it. I hope you enjoy it. Well, it's good to see your glowing face, my friend. Happy New Year. And
that makes me happy too, because my sister was recently I have a sister, by the way, if people don't know. But my sister was recently at a store, and she found like the old Castle Grayskull.
Oh, sick.
Oh, no way.
And I was like, I used to have that, but my mom just threw it away. And there it was being sold for $900.
Oh,
and I was gonna tell my sister to buy it, and then she said it was $900. I was like, she's not like poor; she's an attorney, but I was like, that's still too much.
What's your sister's name, so we can add her to the lexicon?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Oh, Clara.
Clara. Okay, cool.
Wow.
She's a accomplished attorney in the Pacific Northwest.
Excellent.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she remembered my old He-Man castle, and yeah, I missed that thing for sure.
Well, that is an immaculate piece of sculpted plastic.
Yeah.
One of the best.
Beautiful.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
G.I. Joe, I collected all the figures. I was never able to get the vehicles, so I'm wondering what Colin sent me.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah, but I
Dagan.
was a huge fan of the fucking figures, and G.I. Joe the animated movie is probably the movie I've seen the most in my life. The guy with the big snake head, and when Destro's head went gold,
Yeah. I have from the movie Serpentor back there on my shelf.
Yeah,
He's right.
Serpentor.
He's
Yeah, there
He's
you
right
go.
there.
And then Destro's head went gold. I was like, oh shit, it went fucking gold. He's serious now, guys.
Dude, I'm such a consumer, consume with G.I. Joe. It's so funny. But Dig, I had a show, and Gene, you might appreciate this too. I'm sorry, Brad, you're not going to appreciate this. But I know one of your favorite figures, Dig, and I have a few I'm going to send to you. I've already sent you a few, right? Who do you have? Who do you have? You have Snake Eyes?
Classic Snake Eyes.
Yeah. Is that
Classic Generation 2. No, the original Storm Shadow.
Right.
That was Generation 2 Snake Eyes with Timber.
Right.
The wolf.
Mm.
What else did you say?
I'm going to send you some more stuff because I have some of the cool 6-inch ones, and this is one of the ones I wanted to show you because I know this is one of your favorites from when we were kids.
Oh, dude.
Oh, man.
The Frog
Yes,
Steel. Dude, Dagan. So I took all of them. They're all back there. I took them all out because they were all in boxes over the last few years since they started coming out, the 6-inch ones. These are so fucking cool. I couldn't even believe how cool these were as I was taking them out of the box. Because I've been looking at them and I'm like, okay, I guess somewhat understand. But in taking them out, I'm like, I would have died if my toys were like this.
It's unbelievable.
This is incredible. Dig, look, see. All right, so knife on the knife, right?
I mean, look at that.
Look,
the amount of detail.
It comes out.
Dude.
And then you just put it back in, Mm-hmm. And the little backpack has the
3 3/4 versions we grew up with were cool, but this is what they
the little guys.
Yeah.
And
those
they were awesome.
They were so fun. I love them the most because they were the most posable, right? Because they had the most joints. That's what distinguished G.I. Joe above He-Man, above Transformers. G.I. Joe figures can move anywhere you want. So for me, I loved them because they were the best to create stories. Because that's how I used to play with toys. I used to create stories and storyboards, and the bad guy would be here and the good guys would be here, and this is their base and everything like that. And it was just so much easier to tell these stories with G.I. Joe figures, And I wouldn't even call them. I would make up my own characters. Destro was called something else completely.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
I think that all extends to how I play video games, and we can get into that more. But
well, good. I hope
I like games like Zelda Breath of the Wild and stuff like that with no story, because I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, fuck the story.
Make your own.
I love this conversation because I think that the package that's coming will reinvigorate something deep inside of you, and I'm excited for you. I had to show you guys
that moment, maybe.
Yes, I had to show this to you to Dig though because I always think of Dig when I think of this figure because.
That was one of my favorite Cobras for sure.
Yeah, and
just looks cool.
And I have a few of these style ones coming to you in the next week or so because I was going through. I just buy them as they come out, and then I accidentally buy too many. The one cool thing I have is I have 6 or 7 Cobra officers and soldiers, which I'm like, this is dope. This is what I always wanted as a kid.
You're army building.
Yeah, I'm army building unintentionally, but I have a bunch of random ones I was going to send you, but I had to just get that off my chest because. I don't know. Just reminds me of you, and it's a very nostalgic thing. And
here you go. Here's the bad guy's name of the G.I. Joe animated movie, Globulus.
Oh, Globulus!
I don't remember that name at all. Dude.
Yeah, Globulus. Yeah, he was
Globulus. Yeah,
they made
a Serpent King. I remember he is a Serpent King.
Right. Yeah, I know here. Yeah. So they made a figure of him, and he came with Nemesis Enforcer, which was the dude with the huge wings, and the Royal Guard, which was the red guy, and it was a weird package that a lot of people consider that particular character an all-time low for G.I. Joe, but I actually have a really huge soft spot for that because that's kind of more in my pocket. I'm even later than that though, 88, 89, 90.
You are later, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of old school G.I. Joe fans hate that shit, and it's so funny to me,
where it started to sour.
I never knew that. I'm not so locked into G.I. Joe that I know the community split between
there's so no one really takes 92, 93, 94 G.I. Joe very seriously at all. People collect it, but it's not very valuable. It's more expensive than a lot of things you would find. But 82 to 85 or 86 is considered the pinnacle of G.I. Joe. That's the beginning of G.I. Joe. That's kind of like Dagan's G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of interstitial period, when Storm Shadow becomes a good guy and weird shit like that. And then I get into G.I. Joe 88, 89, 90, 91. And that's that's the Deke cartoon and all of that kind of stuff, really good shit that I love. But that G.I. Joe is a younger, my friend that you guys met at the wedding, Mike, who we got into because we're both G.I. Joe collectors, and that's how we became good friends. He and I are both in that pocket. And you can buy like mint on card figures from that line for like a couple $100 probably each or something like that, which is a lot cheaper than if you wanted to get Rock and Roll or Snake Eyes or Scarlet or something. You're going to pay thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Oh, were they Marvel cards too?
No, these were Hasbro. The comics would be Marvel.
The comics were Marvel. I remember that. Yeah.
Comics are Marvel.
And the cartoon was Sunbow and then
Sunbow initially, right?
I love this shit. I love this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry, Brad's like
no. I was going to ask, do you guys remember Dino Riders? That was kind of like my shit because I was a little younger than you guys. So I just remember Dino Riders being awesome.
Yeah,
it's like G.I. Joes, but they fucking ride dinos with lasers.
Dude,
it's like
Dino Riders are so cool. I remember this one too. Yeah.
Like the toys were so awesome. There's like a T-Rex one. The
T-Rex with the lasers?
Yeah, like the main bad guy rides the T-Rex. It's so cool.
It really is.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I didn't watch this. This is this is Marvel and Tycho. Interesting. Tycho trying to get in.
Shout out Tycho.
But only one season.
Yep, just one.
These are probably, I wonder if these are valuable toys. They probably are.
I have some still.
Yeah.
I have like a Triceratops, I think, still.
You should hold on. I mean, not that I was, as I was unboxing everything, I'm like, I'm ruining the value of all my toys. Dude. I'm like, I don't care. I have the really valuable stuff in box. I don't want to have the other stuff.
I have so many Star Wars toys also. Like I have so many out of box and in box for all of them.
God, we should talk about that at some point because
I got rare Boba Fett's that had like misprints on them and shit like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had a rare Luke Skywalker.
Those are huge.
But my dog chewed it up.
Boba Fett's, yeah.
You're talking about the Power of the Force 2 stuff, right? From
I like the 90s stuff.
95. Yeah. That was my pocket too. Oh my God, we have to have a conversation about this one day because maybe you're like my other brother because I have a.
You guys are around the same age.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
What year were you born?
87.
Okay, I was born 84.
So close.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have been like my little brother, maybe. You know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you're right in that pocket. You're a lot more in that pocket than I am because I was way too old to be buying Phantom Menace figures. I was just talking to my dad about that when he was here. I'm like, do you remember when I was in high school and we went to Toys R Us at midnight to get Phantom Menace action figures?
Right, you were in high school.
Yeah. And so, but you'll appreciate that I have a complete collection of Star Wars figures that from that line from 95 through Phantom Menace.
I don't know if I have Phantom Menace, but I think I had the other ones before that because I didn't like Phantom Menace as much, you know? I think I have like a Watto figure or something just because he's dumb.
Well, here, what's funny is that Gene, I don't know if you remember this, they came out weeks before the movie. The figures, the first few waves. So you didn't know. Right. And then by that time, and then you're kind of invested by that point. You're like, well, I might as well get all of them. You know?
Yep.
We were all speculating that they were going to be worth something.
I don't know if I said this but I remember the predominant thinking leaving Phantom Menace. And for people who don't know, I'm actually the first American to have ever bought a ticket for the Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah. You said that because you were in
told
Guam.
that story before.
Yeah, because you were in Guam, right?
I was in Guam, yeah. And Guam, we're a day ahead. We are, quote unquote, where America's day begins. So I was at the midnight lineup and I was first in line to buy a ticket for Phantom Menace. And I was told that George Lucas apparently has my physical dollar bills because he asked the Guam theater to send it over to him so he can frame it up as his first dollar made for his new movies. That's he's fucking making, right?
We have a connection. We have a direct connection to George Lucas now.
Yeah, there you go. That's 6 Degrees of Gene Park, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I remember thinking, like, dude, like we saw Darth Maul more at fucking Taco Bell than we saw him in the movie. You know?
Yes,
true. With the Taco Bell cups, where he's literally cut in half and like it kind of exposed the movie.
Totally. And I had Dagan will remember this. I had a cardboard cutout of Darth Maul in my room.
Yeah.
Oh,
damn.
Like that I bought like it was before the movie came out. Like I had bought it. I was so excited because I used to see these cardboard cutouts in Star Wars Insider, which I used to subscribe to. And I'm like, man, I want a fucking Boba Fett or a Zuckuss or some bullshit. And then the Phantom, that one came out. I'm like, oh, I'm getting that one.
We need to have a Star Wars conversation one day,
dude. I've been bugging Colin like we need a Star Wars like therapy dump. Like
we do
because we keep bringing it up and we keep getting mad about it, and it's like, it's like forever unrevolved.
I'm like saying it
forever will be. But
I'm going to write that down. This is actually the perfect combination. We'll reconvene next time and we'll just all talk. It'll just be totally about Star Wars.
Yeah. I think a big old dump, especially for people who don't like it anymore, is healthy. Because I remember when I started becoming no longer a fan of Kanye, And I needed to, so I made a whole bunch of friends who were huge Kanye fans, and we all got together, got beers, and we all just like, poured out our feelings for how we were dealing with everything that Kanye has been going through for the last few years. So, and it's healthy. It's good. I have a healthy relationship with Kanye now, in that I don't really care about him anymore. So.
Yeah, my angst about Star Wars is probably it's not really a relevant factor of my life, but it's probably not healthy how I'm just totally averse to it now. Mm-hmm. Like before you even get the word Star Wars out of your mouth, I'm just like,
yeah, you check out immediately.
Yeah, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Exactly.
I'm good.
Exactly.
All right, my friends, it's good to be here with you guys. Interesting combination of people today. Brad, again, welcome for your first time. Oh, Dig, you'll find this especially interesting. I'm sorry, guys, to have a sidetrack here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. Oh, did I delete it? Oh, you know what? I must have deleted it. Let me see. Someone sent me a really interesting document about, oh, fuck. I don't know where I put it. That's too bad. I'll say it the next time. Sent me a document. His name is James. He sent me a document of statistics for the show, all the topics, how many people have been on, like the certain combinations and permutations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Cool.
But I have his email address in there, but I don't know what I did with it.
Shout out James. That's huge.
Yeah, I'll have to find it. It must be on Patreon somewhere, and I don't know how to use Patreon's DM system very well. Okay. Let's get into the topics at hand then immediately without further ado. And I'm going to begin because I just wanted to see how everyone's doing post-holiday. What you guys did, how you're feeling. We're back. It's January. We went away in the middle of December. At this point, we had Brad, you and I had already recorded with Dustin your show, so that was set to go. Dagan, you and I had done and backfilled everything. The last episode of the year we did actually was the knockback episode with my mom, which is doing very well, or our mom.
Perfect.
And then, Gene, we convened several times, and I was congratulating you via text because you were with us a lot this year. It's awesome. I'm so pleased to have you folded in with us. And so everyone did a lot of work, and then it was time to get away. So I wanted to see how everyone's doing and what everyone did over the break. And Dig, I guess I'll begin with you. What was your break like? Was it restful? Did you catch up on games or TV shows? Or I'm curious what you were doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love starting out with this. And shout out Constellation. We're going into our second year. This is big. And I love this group for that too. And I love, I just have to second the support for sort of a Star Wars commiserating session, because we could just get it all out once and for all. I think the audience will be patient with us. Even the pro Star Wars component of the audience will be patient because they'll just know this is going to be it. This is the therapy session. We're going to lay on the couch, right? We're just going to get all our feelings out, get it all out to the open, and then we can just be done with it. We won't be done with it because as soon as Jaffe
won't be done with it. No.
Yeah, Jaffe's
going to back on and everything like that.
Oh yeah, I guess we'll have to get Jaffe. We can have a fifth for that.
It's got to be
Jaffe
too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But the holidays were awesome, man. I have to say, it was pretty blissful. I mean, rolling into the holidays, I kind of took a page out of the old Office Space playbook and just, at least the plan was just to do nothing. It was like everything just kind of hit its stride and lined up. And it was like, all right, like the kids are teenagers now. They're kind of low lift, right? Last Stand Media, we were on hiatus. I had no freelance animation work over the holidays like I typically do. So it was like I was all cleared to just relax. And that was the goal, just like complete stress-free, zero anxiety, just really relax and do nothing, or as close to humanly possible as we could do with two kids, right? Who, again, don't really demand much anymore. They're not little kids anymore. Little kids over the holidays, it's a whole thing. You have to entertain, besides just the Christmas presents and the wrapping and the morning of and everything like that. It's just like entertaining them when they don't have school constantly, but they're kind of off on their own now. So it was like, all right, I'm just going to go in. We're going to watch the Great British Bake Off as a family. We're just going to sit around, eat snacks, have a couple of beers. They're not going to have beers, my teenagers, but I'm going to have some beers, right? And just really just chill for the first time that I can remember in my adult life, at least since we had kids. So going on 17 years now, right? So that's really what I did. I really just tried to chill. I read magazines, man. Like I caught up on some video games. What'd you say, Gene?
What magazines did you read?
I subscribed to Thrasher magazine.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so
awesome.
I caught up on like 3 back issues of that. I like to read The Atlantic. I just grabbed The Atlantic off the newsstand, caught up on that. Philadelphia Magazine, I love. Caught up on that, see what's going on in my city. And, things those are little things, but that I normally just don't have a chance to do.
I think it's fucking awesome that you still subscribe to Thrasher.
Oh, dude.
That's like if I still subscribe to like Guitar World or something,
Shout out Guitar World.
Fuck yeah, Guitar World. But and they're still going on too, which is amazing, or I don't know, Guns and Ammo or something.
Guns and you know what, Gene? That's funny that you say that, though, and this will speak to you as a professional, journalist. I feel like because there was a lot of fear in publications dying, and a lot of them did, right? Just print media in general. The quality of the ones that kind of stayed the course, like Thrasher is better than it's ever been. It's thicker. There's more writing. There's more good content. I think the quality of the writing is higher. It's very, it's not so California centric as it used to be. It's global. You want to read a good story about Spain. There's a great story in the recent issue about, I think, Copenhagen and all these cool places. So
that's so sick.
Yeah, dude. It's
it's like being into comics and still being subscribed to like Wizard magazine.
Toy Fair.
Toy Fair.
That's my jam. I love Toy Fair.
Or being a gamer, and then if Tips and Tricks are still around, you're still subscribed to Tips and Tricks.
Yeah, Nintendo Power. I mean, like EGM, all that stuff. But, these are little things that I don't get to do. So it was just like chilling with the family. And I was pleased that I had this plan, at least in thought going in. And then it kind of played out like I wanted it to. And once you got past I have this weird work ethic. Colin and I talk about this from time to time. I have this strange work ethic where, it's like I feel guilty for relaxing, right? Once you get past that, like once I got a half a day into my first day of like, just chill out. When do you have a chance to do this? We'll get to January when January gets here. Let's just relax, And once Helene, my wife, who's like, she's got it worse than me. Like she wants to constantly be moving, especially when it comes to projects around the house and stuff. But even her, like she was down to this chill. And Christmas Eve, we were chilling with the kids, just having snacks. We had a nice spread of hors d'oeuvres on the table. Helene and I got done all the wrapping for the kids like on the previous 2 nights. So Christmas Eve, we were in full chill mode. And we were just browsing through what to watch. We were on HBO Max, and my son was just stumbling around, and he saw the Studio Ghibli section, and he was like, I just want to watch Howl's Moving Castle tonight. And we all just sat down. And usually when we try to do that, the kids eventually meander away. They get pulled away by their phones. My son grabs the Switch. He wants to jump on the PS5, whatever. Everybody stayed for that 2 hours and just ate snacks and watched the movie. And that sort of set the whole tone for the whole break. It just kind of stayed like that. Everybody was just chilling out. Even the dog was lazy. Like the dog was just laying on the couch the entire time. And the only thing I felt a little bad about was Gene and I talked about this a lot on Punching Up as we were closing out the year. Like I had a lot of high hopes for catching up on my gaming backlog, especially Nintendo Switch stuff, thinking about what we were going to do with Punching Up. And I just kind of wiped the slate clean, realized in looking back at the Switch, we're sunsetting the Switch now, right? It's like, let me look at what I missed, realizing I never really jumped into the Link's Awakening remake.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to play this game.
Super cozy.
And that's really the only game I played over the break. And I love, give me, yes, Breath of the Wild, yes, Tears, but I talk about this a lot on Punching Up. Give me cartoony Zelda. I love it. So I just really kind of relished jumping into that game. And that's a longer one. That's a little more of a complex one. It's old school Zelda. So that filled up my gaming time. And I was, at first I felt guilty because it was like I wanted to jump into all kinds of things that I missed. But I just stuck with that, and a lot of Great British Bake Off, and that was it, man. Just really tried to chill, very low key, and I was grateful for it. And again, it's been 10, 15 years at least since I've really got to do that over the course of a week. So it was splendid.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to hear that, Dag. Yeah, I wonder if the dog was feeding off of your energy. Seriously, like your guys' energies, right?
Well, you know how it is with dogs; they kind of do.
Yeah, so like you're chilling, you're maybe unusually relaxed, and so it would unusually relax the dog too. It's good to it's good to be spontaneous like that because I mentioned watching Castlevania earlier, and we've been doing that at night before we go to bed, and it does keep me off my phone, which is a sign. Like, what was that show I watched on Apple TV that I was talking about? Oh, Severance, where I watched the first season of that. That show was sublime. That show is amazing. Where I like wasn't even thinking about anything else, but there's so many distractions. It's hard to get sucked into that space, in my opinion. Brad, I want to hear from you. I think this is interesting because I was thinking about you over the break because I imagined the way you felt was a lot of the way I felt when I left IGN to do Kind of Funny in some sense, where we launched January 5th. Actually, we're recording on the 9th anniversary of Kind of Funny today when we're recording the show. And I remember that lead in to doing something new that no one knew about yet was difficult because I didn't have that experience with Last Stand because there wasn't enough time to even build it up. It just launched. So I was wondering if you had this similar experience, like kind of, I don't know, trepidatious or nervous or what?
Yeah, kind of like a little nervous. 'Cause, I just kind of felt like in limbo. One thing kind of ended and one thing's coming on the horizon, but I can't really talk about it yet with anyone. So I was definitely a little, I was in a weird space that I hadn't been in a long time, just moving between jobs. And it had been so long since I had moved on from Easy Allies. Like I was there for almost 8 years. So
wow,
it felt like a huge departure, but at the same time, it was really exciting for me to just move. I felt like when I left Easy Allies, it was the right time for for me to move on in general. So the whole situation that went down to me was kind of like a blessing in disguise almost at the same time. Where I was just like, oh, okay. It led to this door of you asking me to join you. So I was excited about that, but I decided to just, I was like, oh, well, my show's going to be about what we're playing. I better work on my backlog a little bit and get all that stuff done. Because our first episode was the Goaty one. So I spent some time cranking away at a lot of those games. Like I beat Like a Dragon, the Man Erased His Name. I finished Super Mario Wonder. I played this old Super Nintendo platformer that I really liked as a kid called The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. Old Capcom one. Really fun.
Good game.
Yeah, really fun. And I think I finished up Persona 5 Tactica also.
Oh,
and
I remember Magical Quest. That game was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
You played it on native hardware?
No, I have a analog pocket, so I played it on there.
Cool.
Very cool.
I don't have the cartridge anymore, unfortunately.
My friend Mark Ryan that was at my wedding gave me this for my wedding.
Oh,
very
nice
nice.
little one.
Which is cool.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Wow, a lot of Mickey Mouse this episode actually.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So that's super cool. I love the inclusion of a retro game. That speaks to my heart and Dagan's too.
Yeah. I also did like a lot of holiday movie TV things. Like I always watch the Peanuts Christmas special. Like I gotta watch that every time. And I did that. Watched Rudolph, the classic 50s or 60s claymation one, stop motion, super awesome. And of course the Grinch, the original Grinch, like not the Jim Carrey Grinch or the newer one, the original Chuck Jones Grinch, which are they're still so fantastic and hold up so well. And other than that, I played some World of Warcraft, which was fun. Played with one of my real life friends for a little bit. And I just chilled out the rest of the time.
Yeah, a lot of you get a lot of family time at this time of year. Like do people come in and see you guys and my brother lives in Minnesota right now, but he was over there for Christmas, so I didn't get to see him this year. But everyone else in my family, I pretty much get to see because everyone's pretty much local in my family around here.
Oh, that's cool. That's good.
Nice. That sounds restful. How about you, Gene? What did you do over the break?
I didn't do well. I guess the most significant event over the break was colonoscopy.
Oh yeah,
I had to get that 1 year after my surgery, where we got my cancer removed last year, late 2022. It's been over a year now, which is crazy. Of course, I'm always very thankful that it was a year that I got to see. It was pretty touch and go in 2022. So the fact that I got to experience all of 2023 is pretty sick.
oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude. And Yeah, so I had a colonoscopy. Colin, you've spoken about this before. The prep is the worst part.
Oh my God, it's horrible. It's
I recommend
comical.
all men, all women too. All three of you listening out there, go get your butt checked. If there's anything kind of weird, especially in your lower left abdomen or whatever, go get it checked.
Totally.
People have been getting that shit way earlier, but
family history. Family history is important too. Our grandfather on my mom's side died of colon cancer.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! Okay, yeah. So that's why it's really good that you got checked. I had no history, which is crazy, and that's been happening more and more these days. But we can get off this topic. But the prep is shitty though, right? It's
Literally.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, you have to. Brad, do you know what the prep is?
No.
Oh my God, it's so
I don't know
funny.
what the prep is.
The colonoscopy itself is no problem. Like it's over in 30 minutes, and you don't even know what happens. You go under, and it's very light anesthetic, but you don't feel anything. You're complete. It's a 30-minute nap, and you're done, right?
Okay.
The procedure itself is fine. Do not worry about that. But the prep itself is that you have to fast. Only liquids for 24 hours the day before. So you can only like fucking drink water, clear liquids too. So it has to be like only chicken broth. That's the only thing you can fucking eat for the whole day. And then that's the easy part. The worst part is that you have to have this entire gallon of medicine that tastes like absolute shit. Like it's the worst, and you have to drink it for 2 hours straight. And then it's a mega laxative, so it turns all your insides into pure liquid, and then you're just basically peeing out your butt for about 3-4 hours. Almost uncontrollably. Like you're going to be going to the bathroom at least 3-4 times an hour for a few hours, and then in the morning, you got to fucking drink that shit again, and then deal with it that morning again, peeing out your butt, and then you go do a colonoscopy, which is easy. And then you go have the best meal of your life right afterwards.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
the meal.
Yeah, the meal afterwards is fantastic. Clean bill health so far, so that's all good news. So I spent a lot of my holiday kind of anxious about that mostly. So once I got that done, December 27th through January 1st or whatever, I was like, okay, I can enjoy the rest the next 4 days. And New Year's is funny because I used to get so much anxiety. That if people who know me growing up, social pressure always used to give me so much anxiety. I always used to cave into all that stuff. So when people say you got to get married and have kids by 30 or 40, right? That was huge for me. I internalized that, and it's taken on several years of therapy for me to just get over that. But part of that is also, I also felt so pressured in high school to lose my virginity before I went to college. Like that was such a huge fucking deal for me. I was like, I need to have sex before I go to college. It's without question. Like if I don't do it, if I don't get this done, then I'm a failure, right? And fortunately, I got it done right at the last minute. Right before the timer went off. Actually, it was right before I hit 17. I was like, I have to lose my virginity at 16. There's no exception. So I always give myself pressure that way. So for New Year's, I always felt pressured that I needed to kiss someone for New Year's. I always needed a New Year's kiss, and That was obviously when I was younger, so I need to go out, have a bar, I need to have a girlfriend, or I need to be seeing somebody, or if I'm just out in the bars or the clubs, I just need to make out with somebody random, which always happen, which is always fun, right? And so but that pressure is still so real. It was so hard that even though I don't care about it now, even at the age of 42, I was still like, I should probably make out with somebody for New Year's.
It almost sounds like a superstition.
It kind of is, right? It almost feels like a superstition. Like the rest of the year is going to go bad if I don't make out with anybody. Long story short, I had to make out with anybody. I did think about hanging out with my ex-girlfriend on New Year's Eve, and we did have plans, and then she forgot that she made plans with some other girl, and she was hoping that the other girl was going to forget. But that other girl ended up getting all this food that they were gonna fucking cook together. So she was like I have to fucking cook with this bitch. I'm sorry. So I was like, okay, that's no problem.
I think you got saved.
Her and I are really good friends. I've spoken to her about her with Colin. She's a former Fox News reporter, and really the first girl I ever dated in DC. As soon as I moved here, I ended up dating someone from Fox News, and we're still really great friends. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe I should hang out with her. But we're hanging out tomorrow, so there's that.
Hey, all right.
Maybe you'll make out then. Yeah.
It could, but yeah. So otherwise, during the break, I said I'm punching up that I was going to try to do the backlog thing. Particularly, I was going to try to finish Persona 5, a game that I've been playing for like fucking 8 years.
Yeah,
I've never finished, and I still haven't finished. Unfortunately, the only thing I did during the break was play every single Metal Gear game again.
Oh, that's it.
For no reason. That's it.
That trivial.
There wasn't any reason. Like we just finished Alan Wake 2 season, right? Alan Wake 2 just finished, and I just did a big interview with Sam Lake. That was the last thing I did in 2023.
Nice.
And then so I started to get in my headspace about auteur theory and like what does it mean to be an auteur in the video game space. And I started thinking about Sam Lake games and what makes a Sam Lake game. And I started thinking, well, like Kojima games. There's no one else quite like Kojima, right? Like he's such a popular figure, but it's still true that when you play these games, like his personality is everywhere in the game, from the UI to the audio design to the text, to the character design, to the way the story is told, to the gameplay pacing. Everything is there. It's just all him. It's just so much more of an auteur than even Sam Lake, because Sam Lake's games, it's all in the writing and the vibe and the atmosphere for Sam Lake games, but each game always has a distinctive flavor in terms of audio design and taste or whatever, and every Kojima game has its own flavor. It has a very distinctive Kojima flavor, very crispy design.
I mean, even the Metal Gear games, they're all so different from each other when you go through them. Like Solid to Solid 2, it's just like they are completely like separate things that feel very distinct from each other.
Yeah, they're all so different, but then they all share like this Kojima quality where they all feel like Kojima games. I also played replayed Death Stranding, all of Death Stranding too. So it was not only just all the Metal Gear games, but including Death Stranding.
That's incredible.
For fun's sake,
I need to replay that.
I played the director's cut on PC. Finished it all. I actually kind of modded my way through it just to help, because for fuck's sake, Death Stranding is a hell of a game to get through, especially in the first few hours, right?
Yeah, it is.
It takes forever to get going. So I
do love it though.
I love the game. I love the game, and I couldn't wait to get to the good part where you get all the tools and shit. So I just basically modded myself to get, I gave myself double speed. So I'm like literally like walking through the eastern coast of America, like a 2x speed YouTube video. And I was just doing that for the whole break. And the cool thing is, and it's funny, Colin, that you mentioned in Sacred Symbols yesterday about how it sucked for you because none of your creators were making anything.
Right.
During the break.
Yeah,
it was the same for me. I was like, what the only content creators that I listened to during the break were us, which sucks.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that we are in a very unique position that we insist on doing that. I noticed that with the Sunday shows. I noticed that with podcasts I listen to. Like, it's at the very best, it would be like some replacement level version of it. And I'm not saying we put up our full regular shows for Sacred Symbols and Defining Do, but we put up something. Like, we prepare something so people have something. And I was a little annoyed. I was scraping the bottom of the barrel on YouTube at this point.
I know. Daniel Tosh didn't have his show. I was pissed.
Yeah, it was especially rough since I'm playing like all these games that I already know like instinctively. Like obviously, like Death Stranding is like the perfect podcast game. There's no other podcast game that's more perfect than Death Stranding.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I just had no podcast to listen to while I was playing Death Stranding, which is incredible. So I just would like just listen to old episodes of shit that I love. That's pretty much it.
No wonder he loves you. Didn't he retweet you last week?
Oh, Kojima retweets me all the time.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah, he loves my tweets for some reason.
I'd be so psyched if
he is regularly checking my feed and seeing what I'm tweeting about, which is so interesting.
Cool. That's great.
It's like, I wonder what Gene is watching today. And he's like, yeah, he retweeted me watching Oppenheimer. Oh, he retweeted me watching Oppenheimer, and I tweeted about how I invited a girl over to watch Oppenheimer with me, which was not true, actually. I actually lied. So
don't tell him that.
When I'm a liar, I will admit when I'm a liar. I'll be honest about being a liar. Don't worry about it.
I like it.
Yeah, a lot of it's for the comedy, for the effect, the social media. Absolutely. I mean, you gotta tell some fibs sometimes in the pursuit of a laugh. I think.
Exactly. It's what I think Hassan Minaj is getting into some trouble because there was a New Yorker piece where he's being accused of making up some stories in his stand-up.
Mm.
And he's like, I'm not like trying to tell like a documentary story. I'm trying to get to the emotional truth of the matter. I don't really like Hassan Minaj, but like I actually agree with him in that regard. Where it's like you can, like, you're an entertainer. You can mix things around. Fucking Barack Obama in his memoirs just made people up, you know. But he was doing that to get to the emotional or historical truth of the matter.
Yeah,
right?
it makes sense.
It's also like that's such stupid character assassination stuff where it's like for some reason Anthony Jeselnik just came to mind for me where it's like, do you really think the stories he tells are true?
He's
like,
a good example.
He opens up one of his things talking about how he leaves a note for a woman he brought back to a bar telling her that he didn't rape her. You know, like that, like that's like the opening joke.
Yeah.
You know, like don't worry about, you know, like that kind of thing or whatever. It's like, I'm like, I don't think that really happened.
Yeah,
That's
right.
funny. You know, it's not like I never thought that I always assume comedians are making things up. Like, or like there's a kernel of truth to it. That's what the beauty of Seinfeld is there when you get
right, exactly,
things like the Kramer reality tour or something and how insane that show is, but that's actually based on something that's real. They just bastardized it. And I think that's what comedy is. So
yeah, you blow it out.
You got to lie sometimes in the pursuit of comedy, not in news, not in journalism, you know, but that's different.
Yeah, but I can lie about having a girl over to watch Oppenheimer with me.
Definitely.
That's an okay lie to make.
Yeah, I agree. Meaningless.
But yeah, despite all my bluster, I spent it all alone.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
for me, I didn't do I was more curious about your guys' story. I didn't really do much of anything. I will say, Dake, to connect to what you had said about not being able to turn it off. Like I felt so anxious and even bored. And I really have to monitor that because I really don't get any time off. It's not, again, it's not constant employment of like, I'm doing all of this sort of important things. It's just that there's always something to do every day. It's not occupying 8 hours or even 6 or 4 hours sometimes of my day, but there's like every day there's something to do. And I've said this in the past that I think for a lot of people working a job is actually ideal because there is such a thing as the end, and that like you clock out, there really is nothing left to do. And I worked at landscaping when I was at Northeastern and I clocked out and I punched out. That was literally it. There was nothing left to do. It didn't matter. Like it was over, but there actually is always something to do when you run a business. Like it never does end. It's like, oh, I could be doing this. Oh, I could be doing that. Oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. Yeah. You get it, Brad, because it's horrible. It's horrifying. And so it's hard when you're like, all right, there really isn't anything pressing. It's like, well, there probably is something to do. And so I found myself by late December researching the Insomniac episode of Sacred Symbols Plus and like going through the leaks and trying to figure out what I wanted to say about them and all of that and garnering interesting data and information. And yeah, I got to check that a little bit. It was relaxing and fun to be away. I got to say this though, too. I'm a little annoyed. So I talked to the family, like our family last year, members of the family, saying that I don't want to be subjected to divorced child Christmas anymore because I'm 39.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We talked about
right?
this.
Yeah. And I was 38 at the time. I'm 39 now. And I'm like, I want it to be over. Like Christmas night, it's got to be over. And what happens, and where we are is where we are, and who's here is who's here. But I can't continue to split and have to do everything twice. Right. So, and I really felt like I presented this as an adult, like, and tried to communicate. And this Dagan actually connects to something we were saying to Mom, where I'm like, one of the unique things about being the youngest of 4 and really the youngest in a whole clan of people basically is like, no one listens to a fucking word you say. Like I might as well say things and it's just totally in one ear, one at the other. It does not matter. Right. So what ends up happening? We do the cookie competition, which we do every year, where there's like a baking competition my family does, which is cute. On the 22nd, that's totally fine. The 24th is Christmas Eve, right? So that's the 7 fishes, the Italian stuff. Then Christmas, we get together again. It's the same group of people every time. But then the next day, you know, everyone wants to get together again. And I'm like, I said, like, why doesn't anyone care about anything I say? Like, it's as if I never said anything, like deadpan. Like, so you coming over tomorrow? Like just deadpan, as if like we didn't have a conversation months ago preempting that I didn't want to do this anymore. Like it felt so profoundly disrespectful that I was actually really annoyed.
Let me ask you this though.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Were there any? Totally hear what you're saying. Were there any bit players
It
involved?
just becomes
Like,
funny the more you think about it.
Nobody was out of town, right? Like you guys are all local to down there. So talking about you, both of our sisters, mom, Uncle Mike and Aunt Carla, Jamie, our cousin Jamie, like everybody is already down there all year round, right? So it's the same old people that get together all the time.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so there was nobody like Aunt Joni and Uncle John weren't up from South Carolina.
Well, no,
so it was
but,
like
but there is a component, an important component, which was Dad was coming in the next day, right?
Okay,
and I had this conversation with Dad too. So Dad's in on this whole like, oh, okay, whatever. And so he came down and he stayed with me, which is totally fine. But I communicated with him. I'm like, Dad, I just want you to know, like, we would love to go to dinner with you. You're very welcome to stay here, of course. Dad doesn't care. Like he's very low, like maintenance. He really doesn't care about he just wants to hang out. And I think he understands me a lot better than most of the rest of the family, where we get the most out of each other one-on-one, I think. And so they were like, oh, well, Dad's coming in and we can all hang out together. And I'm like, but I asked them dead up, like, I'm like, why do we all have to hang out with Dad together? You know? And like, no one could answer that question. So Dad came and stayed with me one night and we spoke for almost 4 hours. Like, and it was awesome. It was great to speak with him and hang out with him. And I'm like, but I just got what I wanted. Like, why does it important to you for me to be with him in this situation when we're in with each other in this situation, you know? But really the sheer level of disrespect of just dead ass, as if I didn't say or anything at all. Like, I think I used the word, I think I said at one point, I'm like, this is preposterous.
So how did it resolve?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, Dad ended up coming and then he ended up staying at a hotel the next night because they wanted to go and do stuff like more towards, I guess, another part of the city. And then I haven't heard from anyone really since. So I assume everyone's mad at me. But but I am going out with Derek, our brother-in-law, who's married to one of our sisters, tonight for beer.
You guys have been doing that on the regular. I'm jealous.
Yeah, we have. And so I don't think the beef there's like any permanent beef, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like
the beef is never permanent.
Yeah, truly. But it's also like, why did you make, like, I shouldn't have said, this outcome would have been exactly the same if I didn't say anything. So I shouldn't have even tried. Right. I guess is the point I'm making. Like I shouldn't.
No, I understand where you're coming from, because sometimes the anger makes it feel like, oh shit, this is going to be around a while. But the grudges never last in our family. It's a very Sicilian temperament. It's like, oh my God, like we're going to murder each other. And then the next day it's like forgotten, you know, it diminishes. But you know, what's fun. You know, what's funny about this as you tell these stories, like 365 days of the year, I miss everybody down there. And I get a little jealous that I can't be more in the mix and see everybody on the regular. But the nice thing about being in Philly as opposed to Richmond is that I'm far enough away to not have to be a part of the drama.
You don't think I know that?
It's like
I live in
350
California.
miles is such a nice cushion.
I lived for 13 years. I lived across the country and never participated in the nonsense. And now, and I'm trying my hardest. Like I'm very go along, get along. I really am. I'm not. I just need people to respect my boundaries and my space. And I guess that's why I brought it up, was because it's like I have this very finite amount of time to really be away. A lot of it was occupied by family functions, which is totally fine. But a lot of it was occupied by this feeling that I'm like, I should really be doing something right now. And that really stressed me out. And I didn't like that I was really getting bored. I'm like, I just need to do something. I need to work. And maybe that's just the way it goes. Because it's like I have tons of hobbies, and intrinsically what we do for a living is my hobby, because I play a ton of games. And as far as games that are concerned, I played Tales of Arise for like 40 hours.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Over the break, and I'm still playing it. I played it last night for a little while. I really like it. It's overstaying its welcome for sure. But but that was as far as. But I wasn't really jumping around from game to game or anything like that. I was just really focused on that. And then a lot of football and a lot of hockey. It was good to just be in that space as well. Ton, late season football.
You enjoy that.
I love it. And
do sports podcaster take off during the break though?
No, actually, a lot of the football programming really kept going, which was good.
Yeah,
but that's cool. Because they know there are games on Christmas Eve. There are games on Christmas. There are games on New Year's Eve. There are games on New Year's Day. Like that's just the function of what they do. It's very similar to baseball where there are just no breaks and you just kind of work this time of year. So yeah, actually that stuff kept going, like Pro Football Talk and everything, which was cool. And Rich Eisen and all those things that I listened to around the NFL, another good one. And then, yeah, just tons of hockey, a lot of Islanders games. Micah is a Bruins fan, so a lot of Bruins games. I gave her for Christmas one of my presents. So I bought it. First of all, we went and got our rings resized while we were there. So we went to this like custom jeweler that we really like. She's really a sweet woman. Cheryl Fornash is her name, in Glen Allen, Virginia. And we went there and we got all of our stuff from her. And then we went and got it resized. And when we were waiting to see her, so her boutique is like in a fur store, like a place like I don't belong. Wow. Like where you're like looking at this stuff and you're like, these things are $10,000 and $15,000. I'm like, Jesus Christ. You almost like don't even want to be around them and you don't even know what to do with them. Right. But we had these things resized. And so we were kind of browsing the jewelry and Micah had taken a shine to a few of these necklaces. And so ultimately push comes to shove, I secretly end up buying one of them for her, and give that to her or whatever. But as the big part of her present, the bigger part, I guess that was more expensive, but the bigger part of the present that I was more excited about anyway, was she's a huge Bruins fan, but she grew up in far Western Massachusetts, like near Vermont. Right. And so it's further away from Boston than you would expect, a few hours. And so she's never been to a Bruins game. And she's never even been to a Patriots game, and Foxborough is a little closer to where she is, but that's still far away. And so I bought her Bruins tickets, and we're going to go to Boston in March and see the Penguins play the Bruins in what will no doubt be a meaningful late season game for points, for playoff jockeying. And so that'll be good. And I'm really excited about that. So it was cool to give her those gifts. That was a highlight of my holiday as well. And she gave me great stuff too, including that China symbol sitting behind me, which I'm really excited to get set up.
But, nice.
But
I was looking at that.
And yeah, she's mega thoughtful, like just super duper thoughtful and
good gift giver. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like profoundly good. Yeah. And so
some people have a talent for that.
Yeah, they do. Like they just remember things, or she says she takes notes and remembers what I say.
I feel like that engine's got to be running all year round to be really a thoughtful gift giver, because you got to be constantly open to ideas and just, jotting them down or making mental notes. So that's cool. I feel like I could be better at that.
Yeah.
Like the clues are always there. And then I'm like, oh shit, why didn't I realize this sooner? That I'm hustling at the last minute.
Dude, it's so weird in my family. We all ask each other what everyone wants. Everyone says nothing. No one wants anything. On our tree this year, there were 0 presents under the tree because no one wanted anything. And I was like, okay.
That's the spirit I would love to invoke, like, to be perfectly honest with you, because we're in a position where, at least as adults and stuff, where I'm like, let's give stuff to the kids and play that up and whatever. When they graduate high school,
that's important.
We used to do a white elephant, but then people started not kind of being upset with the things they were getting and shit like that. So then we did like Secret Santa or whatever. And that kind of like devolved into whatever. And then we do the ugly ornament exchange now, which I think is profoundly awesome. Like I love that. It's so funny, the things that people put into this thing. And so that's a cool tradition, but there is a little bit of a schism in our family about, should we be giving presents to other adults or not? And I am hardcore on the, like, we need to stop with this nonsense. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. Anything I want, I'll get myself. I appreciate the sentiment. You don't have to do it. I think it's cute with spouses giving each other things. And that's probably about the reasonable limit, in my opinion.
Yeah. A lot of spouses take a knee on that. I mean, a lot of couples, we talked about that recently. They're just like, we're done, and then Helene will say we're done. And then she buys everybody, like she surprised us with a March vacation to go down to Florida.
Yeah. See that, but that's
not Disney this time.
That's not okay though. That's not okay either though, because you gotta like be on the up and up with that. Because mom does that shit where it's like, oh, we're not giving each other any gifts. And then mom will give you like a really nice gift.
Oh, then she drops it.
And it's like, come on, dude, we said. And I thought it was a serious thing. Like we weren't going to do that.
Yeah, that's sneaky. Yeah. That's sneaky.
So I'm like, I'm not crazy about that.
Joe and I made a pact where we're like, at the very beginning of our friendship in high school, we're like, we're never giving each other gifts, period. And he was like, deal. I was like, cool. We've never done it.
Yeah, if it's agreed, that's awesome.
Yeah, we've never done it. We've never given each other gifts because we don't give a shit. Who cares?
I love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did get my dad something though. He got I don't know if you guys saw, but like a new Beatles song came out. They they like re-recorded some old John Lennon stuff and on it. And there's like a 12-inch single of it and a CD. And I bought my dad that because he's a massive Beatles fan.
That's awesome.
So
It's based on like
Jeez.
old. It's like based on old masters or something.
it's old. It's an old John Lennon song that Ringo and Paul came in later.
Oh, cool.
Finished.
That's awesome.
So, and
I
my
didn't-
dad's
I-
usually the hardest to get gifts for, so it was nice.
Beatles fans are really easy to buy gifts for. Because
Yeah.
you just buy them a Beatles.
If it's a new Beatles
so
thing,
much.
that's usually what I do.
Yeah. I remember Ozzy Osbourne. Do you remember that the Beatles #1 album that came out?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like last decade or so. I remember Ozzy Osbourne saying that he had like about 100 copies of those because everyone just kept on fucking buying it. One CD. I think Ozzy Osbourne can get the Beatles CD by himself.
Yeah. That's
I
funny.
think it's okay.
That's funny, man.
I love that, dude. Kyle, you know what's something that, just going back to what you were saying about just feeling guilty to suspend the work, you know what I mean? And feeling like you're being too lazy, or there's so much to do and it's building and you just got that nudge, you know, you got that little, like that anxiety in the pit of your chest, right? You know what helps me a lot? And Gene and Brad may know this already too. Like I just do a little technique, especially for me right now, right? Like I know my resume needs polishing. I have to update my demo reel for 2024. I don't really have anything substantial lined up yet. So it's like, there's a lot to do. So you shouldn't probably be sitting on the couch. But if I just work for 20 minutes on something, I just consider that a win. And then I'll do it 20 minutes tomorrow. And that could be enough to just assuage the guilt a little bit. You know, that sense of that, you know, just kind of be able to kind of deal with your work ethic a little bit. I don't know. I mean, that's one strategy. And I want to try that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to monitor it, see how it goes. Because Micah was noting, like we don't. I have a work structure, and everyone that works for us has a work structure where it's like we have content when we have content, and you can kind of do it whenever you can do it. The only shows that need to really record close to the publisher, Sacred Symbols and Defining Duke. Anything else can really kind of go whenever, so you can prepare for time off. And so we might try to just do that more often and see. And there's more of us now, so it kind of splits up differently too. So yeah, I got to figure that out because I can't shut that part of me off, and I don't know.
It's a deep bench. You got a deep bench, man.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
we really
look what
do.
I'm
We
looking
really
at
do.
here. These are like 3 legends I'm looking at right now. You know what I mean? Like not just in terms of the amount of people, but you got some quality people on this thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, people had said I was building the Infinity Gauntlet, and I don't understand the reference.
Yeah, I saw that too.
meme.
I don't
Assembling
understand
the
reference, but-
Avengers.
Yeah, but it's
Colin's like, I don't watch the Marvel movies. I'm sorry.
yeah, but I appreciate the reference nonetheless. I know it's a
Some
compliment.
G.I. Joe reference will help or something.
Yeah, some obscure
Right.
GI Joe reference. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Dagan, I kick it over to you.
All right. So I thought I'd do something topical, which is rare for me, but for me, this was the feel good story of the holiday-ish season. And I when I emailed you guys, I called it the Tetris Kid story. So for those of you who don't know, just a little background, and just so you know, there's a lot of texture to this story. It's worth looking into this deeper than I'm going to explain it, but brass tacks. There was a kid named Willis. What you talking about, Willis? From Oklahoma. 13-year-old kid that achieved the mythological, previously thought to be undoable kill screen on NES Tetris. Okay, a 35-year-old game. So I kind of loved this story for a couple of reasons. The 2 aspects of this story in particular that really hit me in the feels. But you know, the basic thing was there's a community around this retro video game. In this case, NES Tetris, not the Tengen Tetris. There's 2 retro gamers will know that there's 2 versions of Tetris. Apparently, this is the NES version.
The one published by Nintendo.
Right.
Published by Nintendo, exactly.
That Howard
Gene,
Lincoln
and-
himself extracted from the Soviet Union somehow.
Exactly. You guys, I still haven't seen that movie, right?
No, I haven't.
No.
No.
Yeah. Brad, have you seen the Tetris
I've
movie?
seen half of it. I'm halfway through.
That's
Okay.
on Apple, right?
It's on
it
Apple.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have.
Is
I
that
still
on
have a
Apple?
free
I gotta
Apple
watch
subscription. I should
that.
just
Yeah,
watch it.
it's literally a story about Howard Lincoln. Howard Lincoln's in the movie. It's fucking awesome.
Oh, he's in it?
He's in the movie. Yeah, he's Nintendo General Counsel.
Oh my god! Oh,
And then they
gee.
force Hank Rogers, the guy who Christopher Columbus Tetris in Russia. He actually discovered Tetris in CES in Las Vegas, so it wasn't even like that
Right.
cultural. But yeah, the Howard Lincoln forces Hank Rogers to sign all these NDAs, and they enter this like laboratory that looks like the fucking Pentagon, and the Game Boy is unveiled with like a cloth over it, and it's like
Right.
it's with the same majesty and import of when Oppenheimer first sees the bomb. It's the same thing.
It is comparable. The Tetris story in and of itself is fascinating. But even this story, you know, like I pay attention to games done quick, you know, shout out GDQ, where there's these vast communities of kids and adults speed running games and just trying to maximize achievements at, you know, new and old video games. But what was cool about this, what really hit me about this story was that here's this community around NES Tetris trying to push the limits of this game, just like all the other retro video games that are speed run. And, you know, there's all kinds of people vying at, you know, their achievements toward, you know, these goals and these achievements in these gaming communities. But this story really drove the point home. First of all, I love seeing retro gaming in the news, right? I love video games, but I really love retro video gaming. And I'm an old head, you know, like I cut my teeth even prior to the 8-bit generation on Atari 2600 and early arcade. And then, of course, that evolved into 8-bit and then onward, and the rest is history. But what really drives the point home about this story is how much life can be squeezed out of a great video game. I mean, this is a game that's over 35 years old. It's been decades, right? And people not only want to play it still, but they're happy. They're more than happy to spend countless hours with it and exploit every nook and cranny and wring every bit of juice out of this thing. And I just kind of love that there's still things to do in these old video games. And, you know, especially in this age of, I think, two things: the evolving quality, the scope and scale of what video games could be now, not just in terms of size, not just in terms of graphical capabilities and all the creative geniuses that the Neil Druckmanns and the Levines and the Kojimas, but just the fact of like, a good game is a good game is a good game. It doesn't matter how big, it doesn't matter how new, it doesn't matter how old. So I love that sort of component of the story. And I also have to say, like, there's a big know your roots component to the story for me. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, okay, being familiar with GDQ and awesome games done quick, and I love awful games done quick. And I kind of follow along with the community a little bit because I think it's fascinating. But when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those who's. You know, it's going to be Mexican Runner or Zallard or Cool Kid, all these guys in their 30s who are professional game runners, super talented. But it's not. This is a 13-year-old kid in Stillwater, Oklahoma, who's relatively new to the retro gaming scene, the competitive gaming scene. He's supposed to be a really cool kid. And it just clicked with me. He's my son's age. You know, my son's 13. And my son's pretty cool because he cut his teeth on retro gaming too. You guys were talking about Mega Man earlier. My son grew up with Mega Man 9 and 10 and then went back and discovered the back catalog. And then we played Shovel Knight together and the new retro stuff. So I have a really cool kid, but this kid seems exceptional in that, you know, I mean, look at kids today. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. They're great kids, but them and their friends, they're in their screens all day. They're in their phones. They're in TikTok. My son's playing Fortnite constantly. No offense to any of those things. They're all awesome. But I love that in this environment, in this climate, here's this 13-year-old down in Oklahoma who's spending 3 to 5 hours a day in trying to be a legend at NES Tetris. And I see him there with the cart and his top loader NES, and he's playing with on a traditional console. He's on an emulator. He's got the actual controller in his hand. It was just a really cool story. And also something fascinating about Tetris that, these communities, how deep it gets, man. Like these guys will go in, dissect the ROMs. They won't play on the ROMs, I guess, because it's considered cheating, but they'll kind of go in and try to, I guess, in some sort of way, they try to cut apart and dissect what makes these games tick.
It's called tool assisting, right? Or whatever. Tool assisting.
Right. They do tool assisted things. They go in, they find out how they could break it, how they could break the ROM a little bit, and they sort of deconstruct it. And then they go into the physical version and they play it. There's so much to it. And there's, you know what it almost reminds me of? I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but it's like for every rock star race car driver, there's a pit of unsung heroes that change the tires. Like there's so many people behind the scenes that make this shit possible. So this little 13-year-old could be on, Oklahoma City news down there and stuff like that. So it was really just kind of really a neat story. And also fascinating. If you watch this kid do his speed run, he recorded it for his YouTube channel. I think Willis goes by Blue Scooty. That's his YouTube handle. And that's probably his gaming handle for when he does GDQ and all that kind of stuff. But he, like, when you get that deep into the game, it's fascinating with Tetris in particular, because apparently the story goes, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, but when you got to like the late 20 levels, like let's say level 29, level 30, what happened was the game kept going, but the bricks fell so quickly that it was initially thought it was beyond human comprehension to move bricks that fast with the controller. Like even the fastest fingers couldn't do it until they came up with this new controller technique where you kind of flip the controller into your finger. So you're kind of hitting an invisible button on the bottom of the controller to mash, I guess, right? So it was this thing versus initial hyper tapping, and then this rolling technique came about, and it opened up the game, and it's sort of like everybody's mind was blown. It was like they were playing this game for 30 years, not knowing, thinking like, okay, we pushed this game as far as we could. And then all of a sudden it just, skies was the limit, that type of thing. So Brad, I want to hand it over to you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, had you heard of this story before I emailed? Seemed like it was making the rounds.
Yeah.
And just what do you think of the whole thing?
I saw the story also. I also dig and check out like the GDQs and all those kind of things and events, because I do think they're fascinating, the task runs and all that stuff. And like you're saying, to me, when I look at Tetris, it's you got two buttons or whatever, and you rotate some shapes, and that's pretty much the game. But for the people who really play it, they see it like in a completely different way of what these insane layers that like I could not even recognize. You're talking about how their tapping techniques and everything like that. It's like I would never even think of that, especially with an NES controller, just what they're going to with these lengths. And it's fascinating. I love hearing stories about old games that people find out new things in the game or new tech around that game that just changes how it's played forever for a lot of people.
It's fascinating. And the worst part of this kind of stuff is it okay? Okay, they reached the kill screen in Tetris. Nobody thought that was possible. I guess that's the end. But then automatically they're already saying like, okay, now it's going to be people who are going to race to the kill screen. Now it's going to be a speed run to the kill screen. And apparently by deconstructing the ROM and really getting into the tech of how this game was built, which is fascinating because from my very layman's understanding of this, the game was programmed very sloppily later on because they never thought anybody would get so far. So the colors get diminished and there's like this charcoal gray level that you can barely see. And now you got to play through all that kind of stuff. The randomization is really insane and it's hard to deal with. But now they think that there is an end to the game. Like they could actually take it apart. There's these tech masters, these wizards. Mm-hmm. That are like, okay, there is an ending to this game. It is now humanly feasible, possibly to get there eventually. So that's interesting too, that they know what the end goal is just from being such, tech warlocks, that they're just like, okay, we know what the end goal is now. If we could just get to it, which is fascinating. So they're real in a lot of ways. There's really no end to how much a game, especially a really deep game like Tetris, could be exploited, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I've heard stories of developers, and players finding out stuff they could do in their game, and they're like blown away what these random kids are just coming up with, and they're like, okay, well, I guess we gotta fix our game now or something like that. It's really interesting.
That's a great point. The way it changes things from a game dev's perspective too, that they really have to be, back then in the 8-bit era, in 1989 when NES Tetris came out, it was a much different ball game, and now it's like, this must really, not just for new gaming, but for new retro is a huge thing. So, the way that games are built, and that must be the ultimate, sort of compliment though, right? When you create a game, well, Colin, right? When somebody's speed running your game, or there's a competitive scene, however large or small, around the game you made, that must be the ultimate thing.
Yeah, it's actually funny to just go on leaderboards for our games and see how well people play them, and I'm not really fundamental. It's funny because the problem we fundamentally have, it seems like with some of our games, is that they're too hard for a lot of people, which is totally fine. But it's funny because you play the same game over and over and over and over and over again when you're making it, or when when Barry's making it and we're playing builds of it and I'm writing it and whatever. Yeah. And before you know it, you just know how to play it. And so like you lose sight of that. We that's what we have learned over time is we were desperate as time went on for outside help. Like I think Twin Breaker, we didn't let almost anyone even play it, and we just released it, and then we realized it was really hard. And we made a similar, we would have made a similar mistake probably with Abroxia 2 had we not really built in a difficulty system, which was just currency, like grind money and make your ship super powerful. Like it becomes trivial if you make your ship super powerful. So, but that's more on Barry than me. I'm not going to take any credit for that.
And that's the way an epic shooter should be, because that's the way they were. The 8-bit and arcade shooters and the 16-bit shooters, that like once you powered up your ship, think of the Gradius games, just for an example, the R-type games or whatever. The classic shooters, that's how it got. If you got good enough to power up your ship like that, it was OP, so you were just kind of paying you were paying homage to the things you built that game after.
Also, shooters are hard.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
It's just hard. That's just what it is.
Yeah, totally. And we don't there's a differentiation, and I think we understand that, and maybe more casual players don't, but like shmups and shooters, arcade shooters, are two different things.
Those are.
And I don't play shmups. I'm not good at them. I don't find a special amount of pleasure in them. But dude, I lived to name a video game with a name as good as R-Type.
Fucking R-Type. Dude, that's one of the hardest names ever, dude.
Yeah, it really is. It's so awesome. It really is. Gene, where are you on this? Have you heard about this? Because the way it was circulating in our circle, and I guess in Brad, you would have seen it like this too, is that I guess some woman on some news show is making fun of this kid or whatever.
I've read about this.
And I didn't watch the video because I'm just like, who cares about what some fucking old woman on a television show says? It's 2024. Who cares?
So apparently, Sky News, which is a broadcast news program, I'm going to say program, as the Brits do.
Yeah,
a TV news program in Britain had a story about this, and then the news presenter, the news reader. It's always important to distinguish between a news reader and a news reporter. People at the desk, they don't report anything. Anderson Cooper is one of those rare ones where he actually does do some journalism. But besides that, they just read whatever's on a teleprompter, and that is their job. And those are the highest paid people in the media business.
Yeah, and they throw to like a guy in Gaza who's doing journalism.
Yeah, who's doing like actual journalism, and he's making like $75,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus the guy who's in the New York high rise, sitting down for 45 minutes a day. They work less than we do here at Last Stand Media, and they get paid to about $200,000 a year. Just to read. Anyways, this fucking that kind of fucking person apparently had the gall to say, this kid needed to should probably be doing something else with his time, which is so funny. because if you're saying that, then why the fuck are you covering it then?
Yeah, really.
If you really think that this is such a stupid little thing to do, then don't put it in your fucking news program.
That was
it's like, okay, Tipper Gore, we'll see you later.
Exactly.
To me, I'm just, what year is this? That was when I saw that, I'm like, who gives a shit? I could care less what they were saying.
And I tweeted about this too. Is that exact same type of mentality? And it's not just about. I'm not even just talking about video games. Like, I'm not even saying that 60-year-old editors at the Washington Post and New York Times need to understand why Bloodborne is such a great game. I'm not saying that, but it goes to like every single aspect of life in general, not just like video games. Where it's like if they don't know a thing, then to them it's just like why, like I remember when Bernie Sanders was going to go on Joe Rogan, and there was a whole big controversy about that. Oh my God, Bernie Sanders is going on Joe Rogan. How could he do that? How could anyone go on Joe Rogan, Colin?
I know. Twice.
Twice even. But I remember when that was happening, and then I remember news editors being like, "Who's Joe Rogan? Why should we care that he's going on Joe Rogan?" And I was like, you people do not understand that Joe Rogan runs circles around the fucking New York Times, the daily podcast. You have no fucking idea. And yet you're sitting here and telling me that Joe Rogan's not a big deal when 100 million more people trust Joe Rogan much more than they trust us. That's right. Insane to me, Yeah. So it's not even just the mainstream media is filled at the top level with people like this, where they just don't understand anything new. The YouTube, whatever, they complain about it the whole time because they're just bitter that their business, that they couldn't fucking evolve their business model. And then what's the sad thing is that the guy in Gaza or whatever is the guy getting laid off, and then the fucking cushy people who have this attitude just see their business fail. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that they run away with is a lot of money and understand that they are failures in business. As in how to make money and how to evolve at the times and how to be a media business,
Yeah.
So I just think that just speaks to like a larger issue within the media space where it's just that was just one mask off moment. Another mask off moment is obviously the famous CNN anchor saying the hacker named 4chan. Like it's another
the hacker
named classic
who is
moment
4chan?
Like hacker named 4chan, or even last year when those two guys, one of them named Rahul, who I actually started to get to talk to, who was outside Twitter, and they were posing as two Twitter engineers who got fired by Elon Musk. And then all the news media just fucking swarmed all over them, and then the reporter just blasted these two all over the news. And then when they found out that they weren't fake, she never said oh, I made a mistake or anything like that. Right. And she said, oh, it turns out these two were pranksters or whatever like that. It's like, no, you fucked up. You didn't do anything. You just fell for a joke. Just say you fucked up. But then the journalists don't do that. Right. People in the mainstream media space cannot for the life of them admit that maybe they weren't the smartest person on this one thing, Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That's a lot of why. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brad.
No, I was saying, I want to go back quickly just to the comment that lady made about the kid, being a 13-year-old. It's like, he's fucking 13. What do you expect him to do?
Yeah. First of all, yeah. Beyond that, life is so finite. If I knew what I knew now, when I was 13, if I knew how short life is, and then you're telling me that as a 13-year-old, I'd be like, "Fuck off, lady!"
Yeah.
I know you're on your way out, and you're fucking bitter about it, but give me some time to figure it out for myself. Jesus Christ, man.
It's fascinating because Gene, as you talk about this disconnection and this real ignorance, this almost proud ignorance of things, that the encapsulation of that to me in our space is the revival of G4. Where I was like, who thought?
Exactly.
You could have paid me $0 to sit in that meeting room where this was spawned. And I would have been like, this is going to be an epic failure. I have no idea what you're thinking. Yeah. You're going to hire 200 people, spend $200 million, have this whole huge headquarters for a television show and a YouTube channel. Good luck with that. You might as well take the money and burn it, because it's going to be gone before you know it. And you're going to be in debt over this endeavor, and it's going to fail. And people in positions of power were somehow either not told that or didn't believe that. But it was manifestly obvious to dummies like me And that's when I really realized, especially in our space, that I'm almost in a powerful position, because it seems like there are certain people that understand this, and maybe I am actually one of the people that in some way that understands it, while a lot of these other people are just tilting and have no idea what they're doing. And I get concerned that, and it's again, just to reinforce the point I had made already, I don't mean to be redundant, but I get concerned that we even look at that. Like, I saw Video Games Chronicle, who I love those guys, Andy Robinson. Those guys are great. And they're great journalists. I don't agree with everything they do or post. Like, they really ignored the Insomniac leak, for instance, which I thought was really strange and inconsistent. But
it was a little weird, yeah.
But they wrote a piece about it and were attracting attention to this. And I'm like, this woman saying this on Sky News is the equivalent of like your mother saying something in the kitchen at this point.
Exactly.
Like, no offense. Like,
you should treat it accordingly.
Right. Exactly. It's like it's why I thought Anita Sarkeesian was so strange, not because she didn't have opinions, but because I'm like, we already did this with Jack Thompson. This isn't new or interesting at all. Anything you're saying, you're coming at it from a different philosophical angle, but it's the same argument we've already heard. So I don't need to hear any more of it, and I just think that, like, don't even bother giving these people attention. Let them die. But
let them die.
It's true. Look. It sounds shocking for someone like Colin to say, right? But that is the mentality that I've had as a journalist for the last 25 years, where all I've said since I was like fucking 22 in this business, right? I was like, all I need to do is wait for these fucking people to die. That's it. They need to die. That's all. That's the only way we can get rid of this is that a whole bunch of people need to die, which is, again, goes back to what a shitty way to advance your career, right? For waiting other people to die. And then suddenly now I get to be in a movie because I got into journalism because I wanted to be a music critic, right? But then the only people a music critic are 60-year-old, 70-year-old people who are never dying, and they're never quitting their jobs. So newspapers are just filled with like all these old music critics that are doing nothing. And meanwhile, guys like Anthony Fantano on YouTube are running rings around them. And then the media business never evolves because these people aren't fucking dying. That's it. They need to fucking die. That's it. I'm sorry. I'll go further than Colin.
I think this is funny just because I was really just talking about the companies, but but fair enough. The individuals also have to die. Fair enough.
I'm actually saying that some people actually have to die, and they will.
You're speaking to something that I was just listening to a podcast. I think it's the YouTube channel Unheard. I think it was on, where they were saying. There was a conversation going on where they were saying like the problem in politics is because people like Joe Biden and Donald Trump being so old, they stay around. So they do squeeze out. It's kind of like what happened to the king over in England, in the UK. You kind of last so long, you get squeezed out of your prime, and then you're left with you don't really have experienced people that could actually do the job at appropriate ages.
Or can you imagine King Charles has waited to be king this whole time, and now he's like 90 something, and it's like, dude,
it's brutal.
To be king for like 2 more years.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's
absolutely brutal. Yeah,
good analogy.
That sucks.
But I just wanted to bring up G4, not to kick a dead body, but just to say that that was a real stark reminder for me that there are people in positions of power at big companies with lots of money and checks to write that frankly don't understand that they should be knocking down the doors of the Last Stand Medias of the world, or the Second Winds of the world, or the Min-Maxes, or whatever. And instead they just dump money and pour gasoline on it and burn it. And G4 was the starkest example of that. But Dig, to your point, to the point of the Tetris thing, it reminds me a lot of my connection to this is not to the story, but to this space is Summoning Salt, who I've brought up many times. I love that YouTube channel. That YouTube channel is excellent. That guy could present probably almost anything and make it interesting, but he happens to talk about this stuff and speed running and breaking games down like this, and the rule. Like, I love the rules that develop and the community that develops around the individual games, and the idea, as you're saying, of the perfect gameplay. And what's cool about it is any game that exists is theoretically a target, as long as it's relevant enough for people to try. So there's an infinite number of games that can be gone through, really, and dissected to that level. And another thing I wanted to say that I thought, I don't know if you feel this way too, Dagan, and the others, but I underestimate the level of mystery in old games. And what I mean by that is I don't understand as a technically illiterate person how you don't plug a Nintendo game into something, dump all of the data off of it, and see exactly what's in it, right? And yet things are found on a constant basis in these games. There's that breaking the border or whatever, breaking. There's some YouTube channel
boundary break.
Yeah, boundary break. Yeah, where it's excellent. It's like, oh, here's a set of tiles for an unused environment. Here's a sprite that was not in the game, and to me, they have to go find this stuff. But to me, I don't even understand how that stuff isn't obvious. You know how like people still find or think they find things in Ocarina of Time,
right?
From 1998, right? And so now more than 26 years later, and I'm fascinated by that just because I don't get how we don't already know this stuff from people that can read it. And therefore I underestimate the level of mystery in all these games and how there are very few games that seem to have been perfected in some way where they have been effectively abandoned.
Yeah.
And I think the original Mario might be one of those games. And I think that they even just play it a lot differently with different rule sets now and stuff like that. But people are always trying to extract. And what's so funny in watching things like the Ninja Gaiden Summoning Salt episode or the Punch Out one, which is so fascinating because Punch Out has so much randomization in it that you kind of have just you have to play perfectly and the dice roll has to be good for you to do it, which is so interesting. So you can get deep into the game and be fucked by nothing that you did wrong.
You're still beholden by luck.
Right. I love it. So there's all these different things. But what I loved, especially with Ninja Gaiden and others, was I think Mega Man 2 was one of these where they extract more and more out of a game that they thought was dead, where it's like, actually, the game will go dormant. Some random person will start playing it, and then they'll just pounce back up with a time that's literally a minute and a half quicker. And everyone's like, yeah, how did you do that? And then you realize there's this whole new paradigm to look at the game through. And
it's fascinating.
And so I think it's an endless source of this kind of faux scholarship of like figuring games out to this level. And I love the idea that this kid, because let me ask you guys about this. This kid kind of legitimizes a younger generation in my mind as far as gaming and playing of games, because I inherently don't, I listen and appreciate and like what people have to say about games and all of that. But if you're very young or whatever, I'm like, I don't know that you have no context really for anything. It's hard for me to take it seriously on a critical level or like on an analytical level. But someone like this produces himself, and you're like, well, this dude took a game that you used to play on a constant basis on NES and on Game Boy and played it to a level you will never achieve. And he was born in like 2011.
Yeah.
You know,
2000. Yeah. Yeah, dude.
And so he
keeps shouting out his dad.
Bro. That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, because my son, same age, 2010. Yeah, 2010, 2011. Yeah, he keeps shouting. This is unconfirmed, but Willis Blue Scooty keeps shouting out his dad. So I'm thinking his dad was the one who planted the NES controller in his hand, like with Graydon. You know, when he was a kid, and my son was beating Mega Man 2 and 3 when he was 4 years old. Like that. That was his intro.
Like a little
gaming.
Colin. Yeah,
he really was and is a little Colin. And you know, shout out Summoning Salt. I'm sure he's got a Blue Scooty episode in the works, because this is a big story. You know, and it's true, man. Like that one little thing, that one little nugget, where it seems like a speed run or a gaming community, the fervor around it goes dormant, and then they crack that one little thing, and it just opens up the floodgates. You know, and that's where we're at with this game. And again, it's sad because you're like, that's what I initially thought. I see this kid celebrating. He's hyperventilating in his little Twitch stream or whatever. He did it, you know. But so I'm lamenting like, oh, I guess it's over for that game. He's got to move on to the next game. No, they got a whole nother thing now lined up. It's always the next challenge. It's the next challenge. It's interesting, man. It's fascinating. I love what you said about the G4 thing too, because that's something I see in animation too, in television, as cable turns to subscription services and stuff. But that lack of vision, or that like the powers that be living under a rock, apparently, where it's like, it's a classic case of it's way too late for that. You know, this moved on. It's YouTube now. You know, it's also a classic case of just nostalgia is not enough. Like there's going to be there would be, or there's going to be enough people who are like, oh, G4. Like I remember that from when I was a kid. But the segment of that, the percentage of those people is not going to be nearly enough.
It's not even me, and I'm of that age, and I'm not. I didn't watch much G4, and I'm not even that nostalgic for it, you know. So
yeah, it's not going to be, you know.
Yeah,
that's going to be a drop in an ocean. I
do think Colin's point about the generational the passing on, right, and the fact that the dad likely helped this kid play Tetris. That's the other side of my rant of these people need to fucking die. Is that the meme of video games is going to continue because like just hearing about Dagan sitting around sitting around Christmas with his family watching Howl's Moving Castle, like that's a beautiful moment, and that's someone like Dagan passing on that kind of enjoyment and knowledge to his children, to the next generation, and that's important, and that's going to be happening. So the meme of video games are a waste of time. Everything's a waste of time, quite frankly. It really depends on how much you're enjoying you're wasting your time, right?
Absolutely.
But, the meme of that is going to die out with these people, and
it's going to, for sure.
And that's why the meme of video games is going to continue.
I totally agree.
Also funny too. I just started playing Metal Gear, and then so I finished Metal Gear Solid 4, and then the point about all these old folks like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden just sticking around politically is made in Metal Gear Solid 4. It's spoilers for Metal Gear Solid 4, but one of the major characters is a character that's been around forever, and part of the problem is that he's not dead. And the fact that he's still breathing and that the pulse is still there means that seat of power can't be filled. And the only thing you can do to resolve the issues that were plaguing the entire crisis of Metal Gear was to just kill the motherfucker, and wait for the guy to motherfucking die. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's why I think remove everything you think about Donald Trump or Joe Biden as individuals, policymakers, politicians, and just look at their age and realize how fucking out of control selfish it is that they don't get out of the way and then instead pretend that they are somehow the best solutions for their particular platforms when there are 30 and 40-year-olds, 35 and 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds that we don't even know about. That would be so much stronger. It's just incredible myopia in these people to just stick around forever because they put people in awkward positions because of the power structures of these parties and all these different things. And it's just, it's so wrong to think like, I'm 75. Yes, I'm fucking great. It's like, no, you're not. Regardless of how I feel about you, get out of there. There's like this young, spry 40-year-old here can do the job.
I mean, that's exactly the problem with the Democratic Party that and that was the same problem in 2016 is that like there's just no room because there's already these de facto winners. Biden is going to be the nominee. Clinton, Hillary is going to be the nominee. So just get out of the way because these 80-year-olds are coming through. Watch out. That's what they're saying to you. That's what they're saying to you, which is a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, we had a senator literally, no offense, wither away and die basically while in the Senate just recently, and another senator basically losing his mind before everyone, and we just leave. It's crazy that we deal with that, but that's a whole other thing. The one thing I wanted to say as we exit, unless anyone else has anything else they want to say, is just a shout out to Tetris as a game. I love that game. And I loved it as a kid, and it was the Game Boy and the NES versions that got me into it. Everyone had Game Boy Tetris, and many millions of people had NES Tetris.
Even Hillary Clinton had Game Boy Tetris.
Yes, exactly.
There's a famous photo of her on Air Force One playing the Game Boy.
Right, which is awesome. And it was Game Boy with Tetris, but Game Boy specifically was that first, not for me personally, but in my experience and reading about things and friends and all of that, where it's like the first, older person interacting with video game.
Yes.
On a Game Boy. And I think that it was Wozniak, I think, was like a famous Apple was a famous Apple or a famous Game Boy Tetris player. And for many years, so even people with like this technical sophistication just gravitated towards this thing. But it's such a special, one of a kind game, almost irreplicable in any way. and it's just brilliant. And I get sucked into it through new iterations every few years. The last one, what was it, Tetris Effect? The one that came out
Tetris Connected.
Yeah, it was so. I didn't play it on VR, but I played it on PS4 and PS4 Pro or whatever, and I was like, this is phenomenal stuff.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. So and also, Dig, you had brought up the old games done quick or whatever it's called. What is it called?
Games done quick.
There's awful games done quick.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, all those things.
Games
I watch those sometimes, and they're really interesting. But I always love the nerdy announcers that are with them, like the guy that's like a specialist in this game, and he's like, we're able to skip that, the 24th iframe from, it's like, so it's so good.
One of those guys,
I know it sounds like I'm making fun of him. Like, that's so dope. You're so nerdy.
No, it's so good.
It's dope. Yeah, it's like being a sportscaster, right?
Exactly.
Like you have to know that shit, right?
Oh,
you
yeah.
You have to be a total dork about it too, and it's not aspersion on them. That's awesome.
It's amazing.
That's
They're
so cool
pillars of the community.
that you're good at that thing. That's rad.
It's so good. They have their couch, right? They're like, this is my couch, and then the pillar is going to be the commentator who could really articulate. But one of those guys lives in my neighboring town. I've seen him at Too Many Games a couple of times. He's notoriously unfriendly. I remember trying to interact. He's a little person, so he stands out.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
you know exactly what I'm talking about. He lives literally in my neighboring town, and I'll see him around. And I think the first time I tried to initiate conversation with him, we were queuing up to see like James Rolfe or something at Too Many Games, a panel, like it was like an angry video game nerd panel. And I was trying to, and he was just like not having it at all. Like he was really a dick. And I was a little bit heartbroken. I was like, wow, I'm a fan. I didn't say to him, I'm a fan, or even let on, I know who you are. We were just talking about, I don't know. We were just talking about something, Ninja Turtles or something random. And he was just like, yeah, he didn't want to be bothered by the gangster.
Can't even talk to someone at a convention, a video game convention. It's like, it's not like you're fucking at his house or on his front door or something.
Right. I didn't run into him at Wawa or something. Like,
I gotta say, I totally sympathize. I've had weird interactions with people too, and I said this to Brad that I always hope that I'm not someone else's weird interaction. I really try to go over the top friendly when I interact with people, just so they don't have a bad interaction with me, because I don't want them to remember me like that. But I am forgiving of that at the same time. Like, you don't, as someone who's been recognized in certain situations like that and been overwhelmed or whatever, it maybe, you never know when you're catching someone. So I try to be more forgiving of that than.
It's true.
Yeah. Maybe he's just awkward too or something. I don't know.
He could be. Yeah. He might not be the most magnanimous.
Yeah. He could just be a socially awkward.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's probably diagnosable too. So. I don't mean that such a joke. He probably is. So.
Jeez Louise.
And granted, I could be a little off-putting. Kyle, I just wanted to kick this back. I don't mean to embarrass you, but with the Joe Rogan thing, right? I know Joe is huge. He has a lot of important people to talk to, right? There's no limit to who he could have on that show. I think anybody would say yes to him at this point. But I definitely think you're worthy of a third Joe Rogan appearance, just because, listen, humble brag, right? But I'm just saying, you have the biggest Patreon in video gaming. It's video gaming. It's not like you have the biggest Patreon in, I don't know, name something, bird calling. I don't know.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
but the problem it's true. But Joe Rogan, and you might have observed this just as being a listener, as I have been for many years, is he's averse to video games. Like he has no curiosity about them at all. Mm-hmm. He really doesn't.
One thing he doesn't go into. It's true.
I think he did something with like Carmack at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. He definitely did.
And maybe.
Did he have Romero on there too?
Yeah, Romero was on more recently, I was going to say, and but he hasn't even gotten like your more accessible personalities. Like you would imagine Sony would try to get Neil Druckmann on there. You would imagine Kojima would have been on there. You imagine Gabe Newell or people he basically has access to anyone he wants, like you said. So you can tell how uncurious he is about video games, because he could be the person that pulls in literally a Jim Ryan, literally a Phil Spencer, and that would be no problem for him. So
exactly. But instead we got Lex Friedman, interviewing like Todd Howard or something.
Right. Which is cool too,
Friedman has more curiosity in games because he's a little bit more of a gamer.
Yeah, he plays.
He's a gamer,
he plays. Yeah. And
great point.
I think it's funny because I haven't talked to Joe in a long time, but when I stopped talking about politics, I think that his interest in me he still follows me on Twitter and stuff, and we've DM'd or whatever. But as far as being a guest, like I don't think that I would love to be on Rogan and talk about games. And I think that would be awesome for the audience. But because it's funny, I almost did Rogan, especially the first time, I knew who he was forever because I watched News Radio and I watched Fear Factor, and he's obviously involved with the UFC, and you just know he's a comedian and he's a funny guy. But I don't think I even really understood how big he was when I went on the show the first time. The second time I understood a little bit better.
Yeah.
Especially because he was in the new space at the second time where he bought that huge warehouse.
I think
in LA.
even back then when it happened, it wasn't like so widely understood that this is the spot to be in right now in modern times.
Well,
I think it was only beginning to form, but yeah.
Being on Rogan it's funny because it was awesome. And I think Joe Rogan's show first of all, I think his show is revolutionary. It's hysterical to watch how much he is able to wag Spotify because they don't want to lose him, because he doesn't give a fuck if he stays there or not. I don't think he care less if he's at Spotify or not. So they totally cater to him and have allowed him to do his thing. And a lot of where I think Spotify said to their employees, like, if you have a problem, you got to go. And I think the same thing happened at Harry Potter's publisher or J.K. Rowling's publisher, where it's like, you have a problem with this and you can go. And so they really stood by
these. When Harry Potter, don't work at Harry Potter, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That might be. Yeah, if you have a problem with the author of Harry Potter, probably don't work on Harry Potter.
Probably don't work at Harry Potter Company.
But that goes without saying. But for me, I look at the Rogan situation, and it's funny because it's just this thing that happened in my career, and I'm really it's a cool note for me. But it is the most legitimizing thing that has ever happened to me with wider audiences and my family and friends and like people back home and stuff. Because that was how I discovered that it was a big deal, when I just started hearing from random people. You were on Joe Rogan? And that still comes up when I see people like, Colin was on Rogan. You know, like it came up at a family thing because our sister Allie's husband's son is like going away to college or whatever, and he was there and we were hanging out, and it came up that because he's a huge Rogan fan. I'm like, oh yeah. So it's like, it's funny that this thing that was cool, it was really an interesting experience, and I was really honored to be invited back. And that's not something that happens to everyone, which is cool. So it's a good sign that he liked me, and I appreciate that. But you got called over to the couch, right? It's like Carson, right?
The old comedians,
yeah, exactly. Right? And it was cool because I said this, but the first time I played pool with him actually after we recorded, and then eventually you could kind of tell that he had a pool table. Like, he used to work out of basically his I don't know if it was his first place, but he had basically like a storefront. It wasn't a storefront; it was like an office park where doctors or whatever would be, and that was like where his thing was, just this nondescript storefront type thing. You walked in, and in the front was a pool table. And in the back was like the famous old studio, right? And so I went in there. I actually got there. He was late. I talked to Jamie for like a half an hour. Then he just rolled in. We did the show, and then we played pool for a little while. And then basically it was funny because basically he was like, "All right," like you almost got the vibe. It was like, "Time to go," and like basically like escorted me out. And I never expected to hear from him again. I mean, it was just really cool. And then he invited me back. Like, I don't know if it was a year later or whatever, but and he was in the new place at that time, and I knew he liked me. Or I felt like he liked me. He's maybe just a very friendly and hospitable person, which is totally possible. He was very friendly and nice, but he had this huge warehouse that he got in LA, and he was redoing the whole thing, like with a huge like MMA gym and all of this random, crazy shit in it. And he walked me and my ex around and like showed us everything and took time with us and stuff. And I thought that was kind of cool. So he was a pretty friendly guy, but I've not talked to him in some several years probably at this point. So. And people are like, you should go back on Rogan. And I'm like, you don't invite yourself on Joe Rogan. Like,
no.
Are you kidding? But maybe one day. All right. Dig, are you satisfied?
Yeah. Great conversation. Love it.
All right.
Absolutely love it.
All right. Brad, let's go over to you, my friend. And,
okay.
And talk to you for our third topic this week.
Yeah. So once I heard Dagan was on the roster, I was like, okay, this is the time, man.
Yes.
I want to talk about, as someone who grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, skateboarding a lot, extreme sports were it seemed like a very cultural thing around in the United States. You know, you had movies focused around it. I always think of that Disney movie Brink, like rollerblading and stuff like that. Hell yeah, dude,
I remember that. I was in 8th grade when that movie came out. I remember that.
All that kind of stuff. And just the X Games were going crazy like that. Were in like snowboarding, like everything. It seemed like everything extreme was like all coming together, like having their own Olympics. And every kid I knew, as someone who grew up in Orange County, California in particular, was like skateboarding, BMXing, surfing, skimboarding, rollerblading, something like that. Like every single kid was doing something like that. And I skated pretty much up until like the end of high school, I'd say. I started probably early or later 90s. I started skating. So I was there for like a lot of the cool companies like Shorties and all that stuff was really fun around then. And I just kind of wanted to get, especially Dagan's take on that. As someone who grew up at skating much earlier than I did, you were skating probably in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I started in 87.
Yeah, so it was just such a big part of my life. And along with games, I used to like just be super active and all that kind of stuff. I just want to know what everyone else was doing. Like, Colin, were you interested in any of that, or Gene, or anything like that?
Yeah, let's Gene, I actually want to go to you first because you're most of a mystery to me. You're the biggest mystery to me on this one, in terms of if we're ever into the so-called extreme sports like X Games aligned things.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in California, but I did live in Orange County. If you don't know, Brad, I'm wearing my Orange County register hat, and I am a graduate of Cal State Fulton sticker. So,
okay.
So Orange County, even though I lived there for only 5 years, this was during the college years, and this was the first time like living off of Guam. So this is really like my first experience to anywhere, like besides just a bunch of like brown islanders. It's like the first time I saw black people. I was like, holy shit, dude. I'm kidding. Again, I'm lying. I dated one black girl in Guam. That's it. But Orange County was so formative to my identity. It's the whole reason why I say stuff like sick. So that's why I notice it like you say it all the time. Because it's something that I've been saying for years, because I was around skaters all the time. My buddy Brandon was a huge skater, and so he got me into skating. I was never into tricks. I tried to do one, and I thought, oh, this is so easy. So I tried to grind. Of course, educated by Tony Hawk, and also seeing my friends, I thought it'd be fairly easy. And of course, I broke my elbow. So I only used the skateboard to go to class, and that was it. And unfortunately, I was actually wearing a helmet too, because I actually landed on my fucking head.
Oh, damn.
Like pretty hard, but I was fine. It was just my elbow, and that was the first time I ever broken like anything like on my body. So then I started taking photography classes, and then again, since I was hanging with my buddy Brandon and a bunch of skaters, we'd always intrude upon the schools. And then I used to bring my film camera because this was in the early 2000s, so we still use film. And then I would be doing like sequencer shots and everything like that, and I'd be on my board and I'd be like rolling along, and like I'm trying to make skate videos too, because I was so huge into skate videos. And I talked about this with Dagan before too. It's like all we would do besides playing N64 GoldenEye Stone was pop in a skate video and just watch that. And one of the most mystifying things about Tony Hawk was that there was so much emphasis on ska and punk. And when my exposure to skate culture was all around hip hop, all the videos I watched were all hip hop tracks, hip hop beats. Everybody was listening to hip hop. It was definitely more of a hip hop culture than a punk culture. So it was interesting to see Tony Hawk and songs like Superman become popular and get synonymous with skating culture, to the point where even Scott Pilgrim referenced one of the old Tony Hawk songs during a skating sequence in the recent Netflix show. And that reminded me again. I was like, like skating wasn't about like punk and surf rock. It was about like hip hop, But again, maybe probably a different era from mine.
Yeah, more eras.
Very focused on like the late 90s scene, right? And early 2000s scene.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just where you were too.
Exactly,
you were.
Yeah. And then like some of my favorite skaters were like guys like Day One, obviously.
Oh yeah,
the big guy for me because he's Korean too. So
still killing it, by the way, Jim. He's still skating at like a very high level.
At a very, very high level. I recently saw videos that I was like, holy shit, he is still doing amazing magical shit with that. It's crazy. So that is like the extent of my, other than playing video games, like I love like the road rash games and like all the old BMX games too. That whole extreme sports like define like the early PlayStation era, the PlayStation 1 era. So many of those games came from those sports. For me, I've always been kind of averse to extreme sports. Anything that could potentially hurt you, I don't want to do. And especially because I've as many people know by now, hopefully, that I've covered like most my journalism career covers like death and crime mostly, and not so much video games. So I was always reporting on not so much like extreme sport deaths, but like anytime there was a skydiving incident. I've covered way too many skydiving incidents for me to feel comfortable to think, I should try skydiving sometime.
I'm not jumping out of a plane.
Yeah, no, I'm not jumping out of a plane. I've seen too many bodies, of people who have dropped from tens of thousands of feet in the air, and I've seen what's left of it, and I'm just like, you know what, I don't need to be part of that.
Yeah,
it's always funny because like the medical examiner. The medical examiner is a guy in your city and county who goes to show up in death and basically determines whether that person is dead or whatever. And then the guy on Guam, I would imagine that you have to have a really dark sense of humor to have that kind of job.
Yeah,
and then,
I think so.
So I remember one skydiving incident where he came up to me and he's like, yeah, he's all falling apart,
Just brutal. Gene, I don't know if you were on the podcast.
He says things like, as you can see, my patients are dying to see me,
Oh my gosh.
You got to have a sense of humor, right?
You got to have a sense of humor.
Right. Kyle, do you remember talking about skydiving with me? I think it was last year. I don't know what show we were doing, but I said like it's something I have had the opportunity to do it. I passed both times, but I always said there's something in me that just I don't know if it's the stuntman in me or what, but I just want to do that. And then I got a DM from a listener who was a skydiving survivor, right? He was becoming like, he did it once with his girlfriend. They made it like a couples thing, as far as I remember. And he did it like 5 or 6 times. And on his 6th or 7th jump, like went catastrophically wrong, nearly died. He's all fucked up. And he basically DM'd me to say, don't do it.
Oh, gee.
And I don't know now if I could actually do it.
It seems like it's a high rate of failure comparable to what you would be acceptable in most situations, as I understand it. But I also know that you can't jump by yourself. So like the first few times, so the person that you're going to die with someone who is a professional, if you do die, and that makes you think like, is it really that dangerous? But for me, I think it's a big difference. If you were going to be like, go jump out of an airplane with the fucking US Airborne, I'd be like, okay. But if like, you're gonna be like, go to this rickety old fucking place in Guam and jump out of a plane and be like, Probably not.
There was one time where I was going to do a fucking helicopter tour, and I've covered way too many helicopter crashes too. Fucking Kobe Bryant was killed by one.
I know, it's crazy.
So that's how powerful helicopter crashes are, that they can kill Kobe Bryant. And I was going to go on a helicopter tour once, fairly mild thing, right? But then me and the girl I was seeing was approaching the helicopter, and the guy was there, and he was spinning the rotor at the back, and it was going shoo, shoo, and it was like. He was like, I don't think we're riding today. I was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's go rent some fucking segways now, do that instead, for fuck's sake.
That's safer.
Which is funny because she fell riding the segway too and hit her head. So.
Oh my God.
Can't win.
Dig, I want you to
remember that because it's like, it was the funniest fucking thing to see. There's nothing funnier than seeing a girl ride a Segway and then see her fucking eat shit right afterwards.
That'd be good.
That's not sexy.
That's something that you've never seen before, and I guarantee you that once you've seen it, you'll never forget it.
You'll appreciate this because this is somewhat parallel. It brings up to mind for me. Ramon and I have this shared memory that like only we witnessed, and it was just this very specific thing on the T in Boston when we were in college. This is the subway system. We like get off of the subway, and there's like you're going down this this track and you're outside, but you can't see because there's trains on either side, and a dude is just rollerblading in front of the trains, but you only see him like, so the trains are stopped, but all you see is him like falling, but you just see like a clip of it, you know, because like you see it like it just happened, and you see like somewhere in the middle of it, but we don't know how it began or ended, and we just share that, and we share that memory of like how funny that was to both see that, like some cartoon looking dude like about to fall on his rollerblades.
You just never forget shit like that. Also, this just reminded me. I was just listening to Sacred Symbols today, where you were talking about how bored you were during the break, and the only thing you had to watch were fucking body cam arrest videos. I'm like, fuck, I do the same shit too.
Yeah, dude, I'm watching like body cam arrest videos for like Dewey's and like just belligerent
fucking Code Blue on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
Blue, right? Yeah.
That's really because all the pedo catcher videos are really dry this season because no one's being a pedo lately. You know. So.
Dude, there are these one group in the UK that I've been watching, but I only see it on Twitter. I don't know where they might be on Rumble or something, where they seem to like, I don't know, they were interrogating some person I saw today, but they were both kind of like holding the person's arm so he couldn't like move, and they were like berating him. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, I'll definitely say it's so funny.
European pedo catchers, that's a new
those guys are crazy, dude. They try that. They fuck these guys up, some of them.
Oh shit!
Which I'm not crazy about that. We talked about how there was that one guy that got killed recently who used to like go around and like break. Yeah, exactly. He would like, there was that one video where he took the guy's keys and threw them on the roof of the building that they were nearby. So that he couldn't leave.
When he slashes their tires, fucking breaks up, like shatters their windows.
Yeah,
and he grabs the guy's keys and throws it at the top of the gas station.
Damn,
Brad, if you don't know, like we're huge addicts to pedophile vigilante justice on social media.
Oh, I've listened to you guys talk about it before. Yeah, some fucking Batman justice or something.
Dude, it's just so funny because you're right. Like they're all on break. You know, so like I had to watch.
It's too cold to be a pedo now. You know?
If someone took my keys and threw them on a gas station roof, that would totally diffuse it. I would be hilarious. I'd be best friends with that person. Be like, you are hilarious. Why are we fighting?
And he's gonna be like, we're fighing with you because you're
Yeah.
It's actually really uncomfortable because I'm watching, or I'm playing Tales of Arise, like I said, and there's a thing called CP in it, which is how you're, you know, like, and that's like that's the term they use though in those things to get around the auto censorship on YouTube and stuff. So they'll always use that term. But I keep so it's like, check his phone for CP or whatever, you know. And I'm like, and meanwhile I'm playing this game where like it's like a vital thing that like is always on the screen, just as like, how much CP do you have? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. these videos are these vigilante justice guys are like ruining my life.
Yeah, well, I told you I've been playing Metal Gear, and then they keep saying CP over and over again in Metal Gear Solid 5. Where they're like, CP, this is CP. I'm like, stop saying that.
I know, we're the broken ones from these fucking...
That acronym is just cursed forever now.
There's like one dude, that heavy set guy that's hysterical too. He orders food sometimes during the thing and has it delivered to him, and he'll eat it during the interrogation, like fried pickles. That's
Alex Rosen.
Yeah, Alex Rosen. Yeah, he's brilliant because, so we've talked about why we get into this so many times with Gina. Gina and I have like a real passion for these videos.
Should be a topic.
What's good about him is that he is the expert of lulling these guys into saying everything. Like he somehow gets them to say, because his whole thing is like, we have no problems, man. We just want to stop this from happening again. We know there are way worse people than you out there. And he'll just go on and get them to admit everthing and then drop the hammer on them at the end. You know,
and he'll say things like, "Oh yeah, dude," you know, like he'll say it in that like tenor. You know, oh yeah, dude, no problem, dude. Oh yeah, I hear you, dude. You know?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, oh, that's okay. Oh, you only have 60 of those images. That's, you know, worse people than you out there. Let's continue. And then he'll have it all on video, and then they'll like nail him at the end. And it's expert. It's not as good as I said of Colorado Pet Patrol, where they make them call their spouse. That's still
that's the most uncomfortable thing,
dude. I mean, that you might as well just fast forward to those parts of the videos at this point, because it's so funny.
Good Lord.
They actually nailed some dude on Long Island. They actually went to Long Island and nailed some dude. I'll have to send you the video. And they nail him like outside of Roosevelt Field or something.
Oh, I had to see that.
And he calls his wife, and he's got like this crazy Long Island accent. Dick, I want to end this.
Anyway, skateboarding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is Constellation. I want you to end this segment, so I'll just, because you obviously are going to have a lot to say and I want to hear it, so I'll just get in my little things here so we don't have to end with my boring statements here. But just as far as like extreme sports, X Games style stuff, what I wanted to say was I was always mystified as a child what the difference, like why there was a differentiation between skateboarding, which is now an Olympic sport, or BMXing or aggressive inline or whatever. And then I was like, okay, they're like, those aren't real Olympic sports. And I'm like, but toboggan is, and skeleton, and you know, the crazy ski jumps and all this. I'm like, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's insanity.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like when skeleton, I think, started in Nagano, if I want to say, which was 98. And I remember seeing that being like, this is insane. This is one of the craziest sports I've ever seen in my life. And then you look at something and be like, well, it's skateboarding and a half pipe's a little unorthodox for the Olympics. It's like, oh, okay. So I'm glad that like they finally got over that, because I never understood what stopped them. It's not taking anything away from the sports that were already in there. They're dope. It's just to say that they're all kind of crazy. They're like, they exist only for the Olympics, basically, some of these crazier, like, you know, ice and snow sports, which I love. But I wanted to point that out. And then as far as my own experiences, growing up with Dagan, obviously my brother, I was 3 when he started skating, and I always wanted to skate because that's what Dagan did. And the reality is that, and I've realized this as I got older, is I just never was natural at it. I did skate. And I used to go with Dagan's best friend PJ and skate often. And the last time I really skated regularly was in college, and I would really just skate to class. Right. And same here. I could like ollie up a curb, you know, kick my board into my hand, you know, do like, but I was not a sophisticated or really very talented skater at all. I couldn't
even do that much.
Yeah. Like I never picked it up, and I always wanted to because my older brother did it. It's like, oh, I want to do this too, but I just didn't have it in me. And I've said before many times that if I'm not natural at something, I have no interest in it. Like, I don't want to fuck around with math. I don't want to, like, it's like, yeah, I could probably learn this language, but nah. But when I put on rollerblades, or when I put on ice skates really for the first time, and I was very natural at that, and I played hockey all those years, that translated into rollerblading. But the thing that stopped me from aggressive inline was that and you brought up Brink, right? Which is a movie all about that, is that it seemed to have its moment. And in my circles and my experiences, like, people kind of thought it was corny. And
they definitely got made fun of the most.
Right. And I picked up on that really early and was like, like, I can't do that. That would probably have been the one I would be by far the best at, is that sort of thing. And so what I ended up picking up was in the middle school was BMXing. And Dagan will know I BMX for, you know, and I wasn't very talented at that either. The thing about BMX was I was better at BMX than I was at skateboarding. You have to have really big balls to BMX at a high level, because you have to take massive risks
you do.
To,
definitely,
you know, and
to your balls, especially.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I remember going over just even my first jump of just being in the air just a little bit. In fact, Dig, I don't know if you remember, there's a place in Patchogue on Long Island where there are all these massive power towers right outside of where Brookhaven Multiplex was. And people carved that whole thing out in the middle of it somehow and made it into like all these dirt bike and BMX things. And it was super cool. And so I used to go there, but I remember even doing those little jumps and being like, man, I can't even imagine. Because I remember jumping into a half pipe on a skateboard in the back of New School, which is an old skate company on Long Island, or a store. And I was like, I can't do this. This is insane. Like, I can't, this is insanity. It's just too much for me. And so I reached that same level with BMX where I could do cool peg tricks and all these stupid things, but really I ended up just riding it around. And I really liked it. I had a really nice bike. I had a Redline, and it was super cool. And I ended up selling it because I used to ride it to work. I worked at a deli for a couple of years, Swan Deli, shout out. And I was biking home from work, and the chain on my bike broke. And I was like off trail, or like off on the side street rather. And it just broke. And I went over the handlebar and broke my collarbone and totally fucked myself up. I had to fix my chain while my collarbone was broken because no one was around, and then bike to where my friend Cody worked, so his mom could bring me to to the ER or whatever and get all fixed up. And that happened on a Saturday. Dagan and I went and saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back on that Sunday. 9/11 happened that Tuesday.
No, my
How
God.
was that?
Jeez.
Holy
Jesus. I did not expect that.
I don't remember
You
that.
never
being
expect
that
9/11 though.
Yeah, 9/11 was like happened literally days after that happened.
It just got worse and worse.
And I remember going and seeing the movie because I was so fucked up. Like I had my arm basically in a sling and kind of like tied to my body that I wore like wife beaters. And then I had like a button down draped over me, and we like just went to the movie theater and watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. That was just, and then a couple days later,
Al
Qaeda went off.
Dagan, I just kind of want to talk about like the cultures part of it. Like with me and my friends, we'd play games, but then everyone's skateboards would be wherever we're at, and like we're taking those with us wherever we go, kind of thing like that. Was it kind of the same for you at that time?
Oh, absolutely, dude. I mean, I love the era you grew up in because you mentioned shorties.
Mm-hmm.
So you were on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I grew up skating in New York. So
Yeah. I mean, Huntington Beach. I'm like 20 minutes from Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach High School.
Oh, dude, I used to live in Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
Oh, you did too, Gene?
Yeah. Yeah. I was behind, what's that high school? I forget. Anyways, starts with an M. Marina High School.
I know what the high school is because there's a skate park by it.
Yeah, Marina High School. I used to live right by there.
Marina.
Mm-hmm.
That our uncle, my godfather, lived for a short time in Huntington Beach because he spent most of his time in Ohio and Pittsburgh. But that's the first time. I mean, that I grew up when California was the Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
Before Denmark, before Barcelona became, even before EMB up in San Francisco and everything. Like LA was the Mecca. And when I finally got to skate Huntington Beach High School, I remember when I was 17, I had a broken arm. My arm was in a cast at that point. Getting there because we saw Huntington Beach High School in all the magazines and videos, and getting there and being like, oh, it's just like a manual pad and some concrete benches. But I was just so psyched to be in that environment, because growing up in the East Coast, before the East Coast blew up for skating in Philly and Boston and New York, it wasn't, the East Coast was an afterthought.
Yeah.
But I mean, I loved it, dude. I mean, I'm going to bring a very skateboarding centric perspective, and I love this too, because you really grew up skateboarding in a generation, Brad, where I was already skating for 10 years at that point. So you mentioned shorties. So it would be the Chad Muska era.
Chad Muska. Yeah.
Baker, right? That was like,
guys,
that was the epitome
was one of my
of
favorites.
SoCal skating, and it was really very Los Angeles based even back then. In fact, when I moved to LA in 2000, and our studio was the animation studio I worked for was in West Hollywood. It's directly across the street from the LA courthouse, which was another iconic skate spot that I finally got to, actually be in that location rather than just staring at it in photos and stuff like that, seeing all my idols skateboard there and stuff. But yeah, when I started, man, I mean, the first thing, I mean, Brad, I already knew I liked you, but when you came up with this topic, I was like, oh, now it's like, now it's a love affair here, but extreme sports, because I'm really coming from a very skateboarding centric angle. I just wanted to go back and just kind of review, kind of check in what was included in that. And there's like, I didn't realize there's over 100 things.
Yeah. Surfing too. Yeah.
Surfing. See, when I think of extreme sports or action sports, I'm coming out of that very X Games centric Vans Warped Tour, Tony Hawk, Boom Boom Huck Jam, and all that kind of stuff. So I think skate, surf, snowboarding, motocross, BMX, and throw rollerblading in there, right? Then when I look at the list, I'm like, oh shit, there's things in there that make sense to me. It's like the OKs, like jet skiing. I get it.
Yeah.
Parkour. That's a newer thing. It didn't even exist, or it was in its infancy when I started skateboarding. That makes sense. Ice climbing. I get it. Right. But then there's the things in there like Colin was starting to talk about. Backcountry horse riding, scuba diving is now just generally scuba diving is in there. Like I love these things, but scuba diving, snowshoeing, dog sledding, these are all considered extreme sports now. You know, so I thought that was really
Dog
interesting.
sledding's extreme for the dogs. I mean,
Especially if you do like what's a little dog, like a little dachshund or something,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a dachshund team. That would be.
you need like
that's kind
38 of them. Yeah.
But I kind of love that because again, like thinking, I mean, me with skateboarding, I was 13. It was halfway through 8th grade when I kind of discovered it. And, it's one of the loves of my life, you know what I mean? But I come out of the thing very opposite to Colin in that I loved sports growing up. I played, I was a typical kid in the late 70s and 80s. Like I played baseball, I played football, basketball, street hockey, you name it, soccer, just was very mediocre at everything to the point of frustration because I really enjoyed everything. I really dug playing outside with my friends, whether it was little league or just playing stickball on the street. Like I really liked sports, but I just wasn't good at anything. And BMX was the first thing, much like Colin though. And you know what? BMX was right before skating for me. And I fell in love with, I think, the trappings of the whole thing, like the way everything looked, the graphical nature of it, the neon colors of the bikes and the brand names. And, you're a kid in 7th grade and you're like, first of all, there was a high cost for entry for BMX because even back then, bikes were anywhere from the high hundreds to $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for a bike. My parents would be like, you're out of your mind. I could buy a decent used car for that at that point.
Bikes were like the Les Pauls of extreme sports.
Really? What? It was insane. It was like not even fair. Like my parents aren't rich. I can't afford a $1,200 GT or a Redline or something like that, And by the time I finally got a BMX bike, my trajectory was very similar to Colin. It was just like frustration in that I'm not good at this thing. I don't know what it is. And both BMX racing, like dirt racing, jumps and berms and whoop-de-doos and all that kind of stuff, and freestyling. I thought BMX freestyle was also super difficult. I was like, I can't do this. So to me, it was just like, all right, it's just like another baseball, another football. And then skateboarding popped up on my radar and it was the same thing. The intro was through the visuals, it was like the graphics on the bottom of the board. Streetwear was just coming out. So like Vision and Life's a Beach and everything bright neon colors. It was kind of an extension of what we already got from the West Coast with the surfwear, and Hobie and Ocean Pacific and all the awesome clothes were starting to come out. I think that's how it caught my eye initially. And then I was like, oh no, but this is also fun. And then I came up in an era. See, when I think of skateboarding, I've been doing it long enough where I've seen all the milestones come and go. Like when I came into skateboarding, street skateboarding was just starting to get big. Pool skateboarding and transition skateboarding had already died out west. And when it was christened and it became this thing where you didn't have to have a backyard pool, you didn't have to have the 12-foot half pipe that cost $5,000 to build in your backyard. It was now accessible to everybody with street skating. That's when I started to get into it. But I've seen all the milestones along the way. I saw the gatekeeping era of the early 90s where no one did it. And it was almost a very hostile, thing where I couldn't even walk into Supreme. You know what I mean? It was like I skated with these kids every day and I would get vibed in Supreme. I was also in a thing where before Supreme was this global thing, it was one shop in Lower New York in 1994. I was rocking Supreme jackets and stuff like that. So I saw
Hype Beast in 1984. That's awesome.
Yeah, to being in every mall. You know what I mean? It's like, and trying to explain to my son, like,
I want to see the Dagan drip video.
I remember
Point
Supreme. I wish I still had it, Gene. Like the FBI turnout jackets that they wear, or you see FBI written on the back, or DEA, like the ones that they wear when they storm a house. It's like that button down windbreaker thing. Supreme made those with, instead of FBI written on the back, it said Supreme. And they were, it was one shop at that point. I think the second extension of Supreme was opening in Japan, and then it just blew up, right? Now it's in every mall. But, and then, the Tony Hawk video game era, Jackass and Bam.
Jackass, that's right.
The Olympics.
Dude,
I've seen all these.
I was so locked in. I was watching Camp Kill Yourself before they became Jackass too. So CKY.
And Jackass was just an extension of Big Brother, which was their print magazine.
That's right.
You know, Jeff Tremaine and all those guys,
Yeah.
Steve Rocco and all those guys. And then that became this big pop culture. It went from, you know, skateboarding went from counterculture and sort of a subculture into pop culture. And we were there for the whole ride, you know, and it was cool. And, you know, again, like I say, the gatekeeping phase of the early 90s where it was like, you know, everybody thinks I moved to Philly to go to art school. I happened to go to art school, but I moved to Philly to skate because Philadelphia was like the skate epicenter of the world in 1994.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it was going off. And I wanted to be a part of that, you know, that type of thing. So you know, it's always been a great love of mine, but that was the thing with me that I realized early on, besides just loving all the visual trappings and the aesthetic and everything, it was something that seemed like the more creative, the more artistically prone people, maybe the people that weren't great at team sports, like that's the punk rockers, like Gene was saying, all the hip hop cats, graffiti, like all those type of people sort of swarmed to this thing. And it became this, you know, it was a sense of belonging, really, essentially. It was like, oh, the other thing was I realized, because when I started skateboarding in 87, it was one of those fad periods where everyone wanted the Nash Executioner, or, you know, everybody needed the Vision Gator, and it was about getting the board. But then, you know, after 3 or 4 months, they just went on to the next phase. And then, you know, only the ones that really were interested in it kind of remained. Everybody else got filtered out like any fad, right? But also there was a thing early on with me where it was like, I saw that people were afraid of it, you know, like, oh, this is dangerous. I'm not going down the stairs. I'm not even going to roll down the curb, you know, type of thing. And I didn't like, there was just something in me that I was just like, I'm not afraid of this thing. I don't know. It's just fun for me. I don't mind getting hurt. I enjoy it that much. And I think that's what, I mean, this sounds shitty to say it this way, but that's kind of what separated the men from the boys when it came to skateboarding. It was like, those are the people that were going to stick with it.
Oh yeah.
For a lifetime.
Exactly. That's why I didn't stick with it, because when I got hurt, I was like, ow, I don't want to do this again ever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But, you know, it was like the thing of like, it, you know, like it doesn't matter. Like this is the thing for me. And it, you know, it took me, I'm going through this with my son right now. It's like, you got to find your skateboarding. You know, for me, it was skateboarding. For you, it might be something else. You got to find your thing. What's your thing that's going to get you out of bed in the morning, get you excited, you know, get you all worked up, you know, make you want to seize the day. So skateboarding was really my thing. Even before, I think art and drawing came for me so early that was always a given. So I always credit skateboarding with being like really like the love of my life, like really gave me a lot of purpose. And later on, I was really able to be involved and manage a big skate shops. Sub-Zero was like Philadelphia's supreme back in the 90s. You know, I got to manage that shop and I got to manage a skate team that sprung out of that shop. And my friends were involved in East Coast Magazine that only lasted like 5 or 6 issues, but I lived in that house and we were the flop house for people coming out of town, you know, talking about Blue Scooty in Oklahoma. We knew we had the Oklahomies come up. We had the Australians come out, you know, the Brazilians would come stay with us. Anytime anybody wanted to skate Philly, you know, we were the place. You know, they came and crashed at our pad. So I got to see a lot through skateboarding. You know, I wasn't good enough to do it professionally. That became really obvious once I started getting old enough to take the train into New York City. I was like, oh, you're a dime a dozen, dude.
Yeah.
When all the boroughs and Long Island and Connecticut and Jersey were converging on the Brooklyn banks and everybody was there, it was like, oh, dude, like,
yeah, I wasn't
mediocre at best.
my brother was good enough. He was like really good. He got some sponsored offers, but he just moved on to school. But it was funny. Me and him went skating together a couple years ago, you know, when we're our 30s and shit. We could still do like kickflips and everything like that. But we're just like, we just don't really want to get hurt.
30s is,
yeah, we just don't want to get hurt.
It hurts a lot. I mean,
totally.
I'll be honest with you, Brad. The last time I skated, like at least I haven't skated daily since I was in my 20s, but like the last time I skated once a week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, I was in my late 30s, like a little younger than Colin is now, like maybe 38. And even at that point, like falling took a toll. It was like really kind of, you got to dial it back enough to try not to fall, because falling, you're getting up a lot slower at 38, you know? God forbid you get hurt.
Mhm.
Or if I hurt my arm or my hand and I can't draw for a few,
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah,
gonna
that's
eat?
what it
That's
is.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah, that's right.
affecting work. Yeah.
Dagan, do you still go for a spin around the block though? At least
I still love rolling around.
Okay.
I have visions, Gene, of going. I'm also in the era now where there's a skate park in literally every town. I know it's like that in Southern California, but even on the East Coast now, there's a skate park in every town. And I just have visions of going and rolling around while the high school kids are in school. Like, let's say 11 o'clock, I want to be out of there by 12:30 because I don't want to run into any 17-year-olds at the skate park. I don't need that. My ego doesn't need that.
Yeah.
But I still want to do it. It's just that I think if I had someone my age to do it with to egg me on a little bit, but all my friends that skate are at least 100 miles away. So it would have, what I need like a boomer friend that's just going to be like, let's go. That's when we were in our late 30s. I had a friend, Brian, who still lived downtown, and we would converge, meet up for a coffee and bagel, and then we'd go to a local park that was kind of in between where I am in the suburbs and where he was downtown.
that's so awesome.
But he's gone. So he's in San Francisco now. So
Yeah.
I don't have another person to do that with, but I'd like to do it just once a week.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll skate with you for a round.
Let's
do a
go.
sesh.
Yeah, I would love it. Well, if I'm ever in that area, where are you in Anaheim?
No, I'm in Irvine.
Irvine.
It's
okay.
close to Anaheim.
Yeah, that's not too far. Yeah, dude, I'll take you up on that. Be careful with what you tell me, because
Colin, if you see what I posted in our Discord channel, this is a deck I had. You might like this one.
Do you still have
Oh,
it?
sick.
No, I don't have that one anymore. I broke it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I have one deck still, and it's this Robotech one.
oh shit,
Nice.
Yeah,
with the
Dude, a Robotech
Valkyrie.
deck? A Robotech
Yeah.
What
deck?
is that?
it's an actual board. Yeah, I just
Whoa.
haven't-
What?
I just put it for display.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sick.
my
I
God,
have
we're
a-
gonna have
love
to
that.
get in
I have a Yakuza skateboard.
Oh yeah, because they had the
Oh,
skateboard,
Yakuza from the game?
for
Yeah,
Lost
from the
Judgment
game.
or whatever.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Lost Judgment, which is actually a story about a 40-year-old defense attorney, but he also skateboards. And so
Knowing you got it from a real Yakuza in one of your journeys
I probably did.
around the world.
I have a question for the panel.
Yeah.
I used to wear skate brands all the time.
Mhm.
So Blind Skateboards, like
Oh, yeah.
independent truck company.
Mhm.
And I think I'm starting to remember why I was attracted to that culture, and it was because of the fashion, because of the shirts were so cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So my question is, if I started wearing those shirts again now, would I be a poser?
No.
no.
I'm
Now,
fine.
do you want to wear the contemporary brands now? Like, I think of like the hot shit now, like Fucking Awesome, FA, right? Jason Dill's company, or Jerry Sue has Sci-Fi Fantasy, which is the fucking best name for a company ever.
Mhm.
Would you wear that stuff, or would you wear the
I
stuff
don't even know
from
what
your
those are,
heyday?
but yeah, no, I'm talking about like old school stuff, like Blind Skateboards or like
The New Deal?
Birdhouse.
Birdhouse,
Yeah.
The
New
new
Deal
Yeah.
came all the way back.
I just
Really?
don't think it really matters anymore. Like that whole poser
Yeah.
thing going
No.
on. Like no one gives a shit about that kind of
No,
stuff
there's
anymore.
that skateboarding. That's true. That's such a good point, Brad. Like skateboarding has reached this anything goes thing, like this anything goes ethos that is so different than it used to be in the 90s. To the point
Mhm.
where PJ and I talk about it all the time. Like, is it broken? I don't know. Like, is it too accepting? Like, you could do anything now. There's no such thing as a kook.
Mhm.
Like everybody's cool. Like, just march to the beat of your own drummer type thing. It's changed a lot. But that's why I don't think that's why you have nothing to worry about. Like, if you were trying to roll that way in the 90s, the skateboarders would never let you get away with it.
Yeah, I felt pretty self-conscious about it, but it was because I was friends with skateboarders that I got away with like wearing like shirts like that said Zoo York and everything,
That's a
But I
great
love that
point.
shit because the designs were cool, the names are cool,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you look at like video game characters today, like a lot of them are wearing those type of shirts, Like look at Travis Touchdown and No More Heroes. All he's doing is wearing skateboard shirts, which is sick.
It's
That's
true.
why I wouldn't look like that guy.
They don't look, skateboarders don't look. That's what I always, because my wife teaches high school. I don't know if Brad knows that. And I'm always checking in with her, like, who's skating? What are the kids doing? And once in a while, there'll be like a good skater with like a big Instagram following, because Instagram is so huge now for skating. and we'll be able to identify people that way, but they don't look the part, quote unquote, at all anymore.
No,
especially the way they school. Like you don't
Mm.
dress like a skater. You don't have holes in your shoes. You don't look any one way.
Yep.
It's very, it's very different than it used to be.
You don't
And I
have to
think
wear.
it's
You don't have to
cool
wear
now.
Chuck Taylors, right?
Right. You could just do your thing. If you're the Chuck tight pants dude, do you. If you want to wear the big boy jeans and the oversized clothes and the blocky shoes and kind of rep it mid 90s, you could do that. It's like anything.
I did the big jeans.
Me too,
That was
dude.
me.
Me too.
You can see
you
it in
guys
my, in my E3 photo. When the photo I keep posting when I went to E3 2002,
You
2003.
gotta show me
I
this.
was at the Prince of Persia booth, and I was with the booth babes, and I'm just wearing this big ass fluffy jeans.
You gotta show me that.
Those are my skate jeans.
That look. I used to get so embarrassed about like the big raver jeans that we wore in like 93, and then it came all the way back. But did you guys ever see the dude? He's on YouTube. I don't think he's a skateboarder. I think he's an inline guy. He's like a rollerblader, but he has these giant raver pants on, and he's skating, and he's doing a lot of crazy aggressive shit. Like he's skating handrails and stuff. But he's got a Super Nintendo in his back pocket.
Oh, yes.
That's how big his pants are.
Yes,
Whoa.
yes, I know that guy. Yeah, it rules, dude. It's not even like it's not even like a mini Super Nintendo. It's a full.
No, it's
Super
like a full
Nintendo. That guy rules.
The guy's the best.
I should look him up. We should give him a shout out. I don't know.
Brad, are you satisfied?
Yes. Satisfied.
Super fun.
Excellent.
Super
Yeah,
fun.
that was fun. Yeah, it's good to recollect on that stuff, and it's cool to see the unity of what we would consider like the X Games or extreme games with mainstream culture and all the things that are owed to that at the turn of the century. I think Tony Hawk, as we said, being a major part of that. All right, Gene, let's go to you to wrap things up. Let's bring it down as we exit this episode of Constellation.
Maybe, I don't know. It could be some funny stories.
Oh, definitely.
I actually
Certainly.
thought about maybe doing a topic that's topical, like in the news. Colin, I know that you've talked about that, and I'm interested in that stuff too. But I wonder what there was stuff in the news that was easy to talk about that wouldn't be annoying. I guess there's that Claudine Gay Harvard.
Oh yeah, Harvard.
Are you guys paying attention to that? Like, who the fuck cares about what the fuck people say at Harvard? First of all, that's my thing. I don't give a shit what anyone says about anything in Harvard. So I wanted to talk about rejection, and I bring this up because, well, I don't know. It's just something that we all have to go through sooner or later. Those times when you are either told no, or the times where you might have told no to someone, whether it was for a job or even for dating or anything, any kind of rejection. I'm curious to see how you guys have dealt with either being rejected or being the one doing the rejection. Like one thing, obviously a lot of people talk about, being rejected by girls. And for me, I've always been scared about that. I've always been afraid to make the first move because I'm afraid of that rejection. It took me a long while, probably becoming an alcoholic, to train that out of me, that social anxiety. Actually, it was completely because of alcoholism that I was able to.
Oh,
train
dude, that courage, yeah, you get a lot more confident.
Exactly. They call it liquid courage for a reason, And then, so, of course, obviously, the problems arise when you get a little too brave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to do that to it. So it's always a good balance. But I remember when I used to be worried about ruining a friendship, because I liked this girl. But eventually got to a point where, like, when I asked this girl out, and she would say, whenever they say, "Oh, thanks," that's when you know that they're trying to move the conversation along, and they don't want to talk about this right now.
Yeah,
which sucks. And then like, so I remember prodding it a little further, and she was like, "Well, I just think that I really value our friendship." And I remember thinking, I don't really value our friendship all that much, to be quite honest. I've already done the cost benefit analysis of this, and I'm fine losing you as a friend. It doesn't work out. But I guess you're not there yet, so maybe we shouldn't do things.
I love that.
But like that just never worked on me, because it's like I don't care about our friendship. It's fine. I have too many friends. It's fun. I get nothing from it. There was one time where I did successfully get out of the friend zone, which is incredible. I think it was the only time I actually broke out of the friend zone.
Nice.
And this was a girl that I was actually like hanging out with for a year and a half, and we would like, like have coffee dates or like work together and everything. And then she broke up with her boyfriend, and I was like, oh, it's time for me to move in, right? So I was really, really aggressive, and she was, courting me and everything, and eventually. I found out that she was actually seeing a really, really good friend of mine too at the same time. So she was courting both of us. Oh. And the funny thing is that this other guy is a really good guy. Like I really like him a lot. Like, and she ended up dating him. I was like, totally makes sense. He's kind of like me, but a little bit more handsome, a little bit more awkward, So I totally get that. I actually ended up winning, which was crazy. And then a month and a half later, I broke up with her because I was just not into it. I was like, actually, I think maybe we were better as friends. I regret that my cost benefit analysis was wrong at that one. I'm actually always thinking about how we were such good friends, and I really enjoyed our time together. And I fucked it up by trying to sleep with her, and it sucked. But that was one time where like rejection didn't happen. But I've been rejected so many times where I'm just like, for me, I always didn't deal with it well because I always kept getting drunker and drunker. So I don't recommend that. Definitely think you have to like kind of like internalize it and know that failure and being told no is just a part of life. And then that was when I started to internalize that, and when I was like, you know what, you can just move on. Mm-hmm. And of course, the other part of rejection is job rejection. A lot of people look at me. I work at the Washington Post. It's considered one of the Valhalla peaks of journalism, right? New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. If you make it to one of them, you might be safe forever, which is not true. We just lost 240 people at the Washington Post in the last month, right? But at the very least, I've had a on the surface level a successful career, but I've been rejected so many times. The only reason why I'm out here in DC is because newspapers all up and down California have been rejecting me for 10, 20 years. Ever since I finished college. The Orange County Register, the hat that I'm wearing right now, I interned them twice. I interned for them at the local city level and for the entertainment section. And they did not hire me because they had some weird misguided policy where every new reporter that they hire must be fluent in a second language. They have to be fluent in a second language.
I could barely speak one language.
No room whatsoever. It can be any language. I could have just fucking made up a language. But what they would have done is they would have hired somebody else that spoken that language, and I'll have to interview them. So it would have been a whole fucking test. I was like, this is fucking bullshit, man. And they're like, can you speak anything? I was like, I can speak a little Korean. I was like, well, learn Korean and come back. I was like, that's insane. And, that policy didn't last long because it was stupid, It doesn't make any sense.
That's arbitrary.
Well-intentioned, obviously, it'd be cool to have a bunch of reporters that can speak in Spanish, obviously, especially in Southern California. Maybe you should just be asking for that instead.
Right.
Instead of having this weird blanket policy. Ask for a Vietnamese speaker. There's a lot of Vietnamese folks in Southern California too. You might want that, maybe that. But then also, I tried to intern at the LA Times. They even had a program for minority journalists called MetPro. And I applied for that so many times, and I kept getting rejected from the affirmative action program at the Los Angeles Times. Wow. And they would even look at me. It wasn't until a couple of years later the Los Angeles Times actually came knocking on my door and wanted to hire me. And it turned out that, now at this point in my life and my career, their salary is just entirely too low for me to work there, which is crazy.
Yeah, I understand them to be like really struggling.
They're super struggling. Oh my God. Every paper, the Orange County Register was a family paper, and like they were thinking about, I think they did sell off, I think. I don't know, Brad.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because no one gives a shit about newspapers. That's why. So who cares, right? No one's paying attention to the business of that. But also, I got rejected for the Washington Post too. I applied to be a more senior social media editor, and I just didn't even get a call back. It wasn't until the second time that I was able to land it. But I also have applied to the Village Voice in New York. I applied to fucking Mashable. If you guys remember that.
Yeah, of course.
I do, yeah.
I've applied to the San Francisco Chronicle, the Seattle Times, I would just not even get a call back, let alone a job interview. And then there was times where I've rejected folks, not so much in a dating space, but even I was really struck by what you said, Colin, yesterday, or in the most recent Sacred Symbols, where you talk about how you don't want to start a company where you are kind of like a mentor. How did you explain?
Yeah, I said that I'm like not a natural leader, and that I hire only people that know what to do pretty intrinsically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I related to that because I never want to be a mentor to anybody. I think the idea of it doesn't make sense to me because I don't think I'm a good mentor. But you want to talk about people being like nervous around you, right? Maybe the general public might not be nervous around me, but a lot of young journalists get pretty nervous around me because I'm pretty well known at least in the industry space. So when I go to job conventions or journalism conventions, I show up and they're like, "Oh shit, that's Gene Park," And then I would get so many requests to be my mentee, and they want to learn under me. And I don't know how many times I've had to say no, and that really crushes a lot of people. And I always have to be careful. I learned that the first time I did it was this dude. Of course, he was Vietnamese, and of course his name is Kevin Nguyen. Brad, I hope you appreciate that joke because there's about 1,000 people named Kevin Nguyen in Orange County. Kevin Nguyen in Orange County.
I want to say I actually knew one.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. But this poor kid, Kevin, he came up to me in Las Vegas at a convention, and I was super drunk, and I was trying to eat my food at 3 a.m. And he saw me, and he was like, "This is my chance to talk to Gene Park."
Oh, he got you.
He's in the lobby. And then he sat down at my table. He was like, "Hey, I just want to say that I just really admire everything." And I was like falling asleep. I was like so drunk, And I was a little mean to him. And I said, "Hey, look, man, if you want to learn under me, first things first, don't talk to me at 3 a.m. when I'm drunk. Don't do that." And then I saw him the next day at the lobby, and he was super drunk. And then someone told me that he got super depressed about what I said to him. Because I told him that I don't want him as a mentee, and I had to find him and tell him, "Look, it's actually nothing to do with you. I have no idea who you are. That you seem really cool, and we could probably party together. Here you are drunk right now, and I was drunk last night. But it's just that I just don't feel like I'm a good leader. I don't think that I'm someone who can manage influencing somebody in a good way and in a good, responsible way that I feel would be rewarding for the both of us. So I just want to cut that off right there, and I just don't want anyone to be under my tutelage. I'm just not into that right now or ever. So that's one thing where like many people have asked me, "Now I want to learn under Eugene," and I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I don't want
I don't want to be a big brother to anybody. I'm not into that whole fucking program.
I agree in the sense that I'm just not seeking out a protege situation, and I don't really know that what we do is replicable in a lot of different ways. Like, what are you really going to learn from me? This is a very unique and strange situation that doesn't translate necessarily. I have reflected before that I am surprised that more people don't pick my brain about how we have built all of this together. And I think a lot of that is just angst about it happening at all. But I will note that the one company that picked our brains the most is Second Wind, and they're the only ones that have ever passed us on Patreon.
Oh, wow.
So I look around and I just that is strange to me because people seem very locked into their preconceived notions about all these different things and don't want to break out of them or whatever. And then they expect that like I can, or that like this sort of knowledge or experience can be implanted when really like you need to find the next thing. We used to have these conversations at IGN when I was there, and it's been so long now. It's been 9 years. And we used to have these conversations about like, what are the games we really need to cover? I remember there was like a real urgency. Like, we got to cover Minecraft. We got to cover League of Legends. We got to, and what we realized over time was it's impossible to cover any of those things once they become known quantities. You need to be able to predict the next one and be there. And that's like where the wiki system came and from, and all of that stuff at IGN was to try to just have this universal base of knowledge where whatever ticks off will be catchable in SEO and catchable for our audience and all those kinds of things. And IGN's a lot different than it was when I was there now, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm going off on a diatribe. It doesn't matter.
No, but I feel like that's relevant. You do have to. Well, God, what was I going to say? It's funny that you say that, because I feel like the most interesting thing, and for me as a professional, as a media professional, I think the most interesting thing that I could learn from you is how you set this all up. We want to talk. We're talking on the 9th anniversary of Kind of Funny. I've always said this before, that Kind of Funny, what you and Greg did was before what the 2017 exodus of everyone leaving BuzzFeed. And we want to talk about mainstream media. That was one of BuzzFeed's biggest missteps. Looking back, is that they lost so much of their talent, their eyeball grabbing talent, because they were stubborn about owning the content and not sharing any of the profit. And that's why there was the whole host of that. But really, again, coming back to what you said, I think the most fascinating thing is not really. I'm not saying you're a bad analyst or whatever, but I think the most fascinating and your wildest talent is building this company to what it is. And I think that's to me the most fascinating thing, the thing I want to learn most about you. And that's why out of all the interviews that you've done, Colin, in the past year or so, the one of the more interesting things was that one college kid that had a business class. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
It was just this little kid who's taking business, who's going to business school. And he was just asking all about the business. And I was like, this is the only conversation I actually want to hear really Colin talk about and like learn from, No,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I am bitter in some way that because of the way things went down, and I guess that does dovetail with my own rejection, is like I'll never get the credit that for any of that stuff. I'll never get credit for it.
Yeah, today's like you see on social media, like everyone is celebrating the 9th anniversary of Kind of Funny. Nobody is saying Colin's name.
Yeah, which is by the way, I think that's totally great. I walked away like it was my choice, but and I think it's awesome.
I mean, and to be fair, like you've been gone longer than you were there.
Oh my God, by multiple times. Yeah.
Oh, right.
But
yeah,
it bothers me that like we all did that together and took that risk together and had that vision together. And I often think that like I think I did see things a little bit more presciently than even the bosses at IGN saw in some ways. Like I very specifically remember when I was an intern the first time in 2003 that I wondered why we didn't cover TV shows. And that was like laughed away. And then literally the next year they started covering TV shows, right? I remember being told that no one, and this was true probably at the time, but I saw it evolving where there was this idea like no one cares who writes any of this stuff. They care that it comes from IGN. Like they don't, like I remember that being basically said. And that was like a long time ago when I was still an intern and a freelancer. But by the time I came in, and I've said before, and I love him. I'm not trying to like talk shit or whatever. I think he's a great person. But Pear told me that he didn't think I was cut out to do what I'm doing now. And that was 10 years ago, that he thought I was like intrinsically a writer and was making a mistake by leaving and stuff. And like, so people, so I do think I have like some sort of vision, but I think that I've fallen into this position specifically not on accident, because it grew because it's good. But and people have reached out, you'd probably appreciate this, Gene, like over the years, people have reached out and been like, I would accept the role as CEO of the company. Like I run this, and this, and I've done this, and this, and like, I could run the company. And like, I sometimes visualize that. And it's funny that people reach out and do that. But at the same time, it's like, that will never happen because it's such a unique and strange beast that is irreplicable and can't really be learned from in a lot of different ways, probably ultimately, that no one can really even come in and learn or run it either, which basically connects into my earlier nice little circle, what we were talking about earlier about not being able to shut it off. But the rejection I was thinking about as we go around, I guess, is because we've talked about girls and stuff like that. And I must say, I've been pretty risk averse in my life, generally speaking. Like I've not, I've shot my shots and had some good successes and all of those kinds of things in relationships and when I was a kid and getting girls or whatever. But I was pretty like tame about it and didn't really overshoot or anything like that. So I didn't really deal with a lot of, if anything, I was like way too passive, and there's probably some sort of allure to that too, but like I was very, very passive. And so I kind of navigated around that level of rejection. I've been broken up with, and that's like its own level of rejection. But And I applied to one college and got into it. So I didn't get, I didn't get any rejection letters, and I didn't really apply to many jobs when I was a kid. And I got my job offer at IGN without applying to it. So
I was wondering about the job portion of your history. Yeah.
Yeah. I know and this is an old story for a lot of the audience, so I'm sorry, but when I graduated Northeastern in 2007, I was matriculating into grad school at Northeastern in the fall, and I had a TA position lined up, and I was like living on a person's couch, basically. My friend Pablo, that comes up sometimes on the show, and I was paying like $200 basically a month to just live in this like my random friend's apartment, just kind of being there, and it was hysterical. And I was just kind of chilling. I was freelancing for IGN. I was actually making a lot of money for what it was. I was making like a couple grand, maybe $2,500 a month, writing TV reviews and strategy guides and all these different things. And I was like, this is a somewhat comfortable life. I just buy weed and beer and food, and I'm going to do this grad school thing and everything. And then a guy named Jason Allen, I'm not even sure where he is anymore, but he was at IGN and he went to Capcom. And so there was an opening on the IGN strategy guides team specifically, which is what my specific talent was. And they just offered me a job. And I spoke to a recruiter at Fox once. It was basically a done deal. And I was there in a couple of weeks, basically. So that's how it all happened. So I never applied for that job. And I've never really applied for a real job in my life, to be honest.
I was about to say, have you ever applied for another job while you're at IGN or anything too?
No, never. I did. Yeah. I will admit now that I did go and speak to people at GameSpot when I was at IGN late in my career there, because I was mad at them that they weren't paying me enough.
Good.
And I think, did I tell this? I don't know if I told this story. We had this guy named Roy, who was the CEO of the company. So IGN was an independent company, and then Fox bought IGN in 2005. People might remember. They bought it for $650 million. And which is
the fact that they bought IGN for more than Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post is incredible.
Right. It's absolutely wild. And imagine how, I mean, I don't think people really knew this, because I don't think people were very self-reflective sometimes, I'm so thrilled for him and stuff, but like people like Pear got so rich off this. I mean, Pear lives in the Marin Hills, overlooking the bay, basically. Just beautiful, just right place, right time, mega talented guy, cashed in this big thing. They bought MySpace at the same time, and they put us together.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And MySpace, you'll appreciate this, Gene. At my first Christmas party when I was a full-time employee at IGN in 2007, I was somewhat poor, and I didn't really know, and I didn't really care anyway. It's how I always dressed, but I wore like just nice jeans and like my shell toes or whatever I wore. And then I had like a sweatshirt on, and just walking in from the outside, and someone at MySpace was like, who goes to a Christmas party like that? Like to his friends or whatever. And I'll never forget that. Because
the guys at MySpace was talking down to you.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I was like, a year later, you guys were all out, and we basically took over your entire building. Yeah. But nonetheless, so I always think about that. But yeah, so they were put together, and it's fascinating to think that all of this time later, Fox ends up selling the company in 2012 for a major loss, and so we're independent for a while. And at this time, we have the CEO, Roy, and he ends up helping this engineer a sale to another company, which is Ziff Davis, that still owns it today. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I tell all of that wrong, rambling story for no reason to say that when I went to GameSpot was in the CBS Interactive building. And so there's a lot of like action going on there in San Francisco. And I went and spoke to Ty Root, who was an old IGN head there that went to GameSpot, and a few others there. And Roy had just left IGN and walked by us as they were like talking to me and interviewing me and stuff like that. And I was like, oh shit. He could tell people that I'm here, and first of all, if he was still at IGN, I would have probably been in deeper shit. Although maybe they would have been like, oh, what do we need to do? We didn't realize you were this unhappy. But I always remember that. And that wasn't really a job. It didn't go any further than that conversation. I say that only to say that's the closest I ever got to get to applying for another job, because I found it kind of funny, and then I found this. So the
conversation never really went anywhere. They didn't offer you, GameSpot didn't offer you enough. Or what
I remember about it actually, and I don't think he would mind me saying this, is that Ty was basically like, you don't want to come here. Kind of thing. Like, it's kind of a parallel move. It's not really going to do anything for you. We'll pay you more, but
yeah,
you don't really. And that was true, because for as unrecognizable as IGN has become, GameSpot is like
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Like I don't even read GameSpot anymore. Like because I try to make a effort of reading all of the major websites and outlets every week when I'm preparing Sacred Symbols, and I don't even bother with GameSpot, and I haven't for years anymore because like I'll even read Kotaku, you know? So anyway, so my rejection goes into, I guess, and it's kind of somewhat relevant, I guess, because we're talking about the 9th anniversary of Kind of Funny and all these things. Is just, I think the most major rejection I ever experienced was just the massive rejection of like the industry and like my friends
of society.
Yeah, of everything, and it really. It's interesting because this has been touched on in so many different ways. But
to the audience, I'm sorry, I actually didn't think that it would verge into this.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay.
I don't mean to be a David Jaffe role. I promise. I promise.
No.
I don't mean to be Jaffe about this.
That's some Jaffe energy.
It's very Jaffe energy.
It is. It's
Colin. What are your feelings about Greg right now?
Yeah, I know he's such an asshole. But I think, it is what came up to me because it is when my major experience with rejection, because I have just been lucky enough to have had a fortunate enough life and experience professionally, academically. I mean, my mom worked where I wanted to go to school. I worked really hard to go to be at IGN, but they did offer me a job. I didn't like apply. Greg always tells a story about how he applied like a dozen times, and I used to make fun of him that I didn't apply at all. And we used to laugh about that or whatever. And so really, when I think about rejection, it's either like trivial girl things from when I was younger, which I don't really care about anymore, or more lasting things like that. And I was thinking about something specifically, actually, a friend of mine, Andrew, that I used to work with, who works at Sucker Punch now. And I think about him because he was actually, I'm sorry?
Is it Goldfarb?
Yeah, Andrew Goldfarb. Yeah. And we were boys at IGN. I loved him. And I think about him only because I give him credit in that, because of the things people probably were saying to him and his own political opinions as time went on, and just kind of the injection of that really virulent leftism in the games industry during that era, he was the one person that basically told me before any of that stuff went down that he didn't really want anything to do with me anymore. And I remember I used to just make reservations at nice restaurants in San Francisco because they were so hard to get at like cool times. And then I would just go with random people, and I would often just be like, oh, do you want to go meet at Bourbon and Branch for a drink? Do you want to go meet, wherever, and Wayfair Tavern or whatever. And I remember texting him, and we used to do that. So and he was still at IGN at the time. He worked at Gearbox for a while and then came back to IGN. And
that's right. Yeah.
And to his credit, and talking about rejection, I remember texting him one day and being like, come meet me at, this restaurant. And he was basically like, in so many words, like, I don't really want to be friends with you anymore, and
it's brutal.
Yeah. Like in so many words, right? Brutal. I mean, it was sort of like you're becoming toxic and all of these different things. And I'm not going to out him about who I think was influencing him on all these different things, but that was a pretty stark thing that in hindsight, I actually give him credit for. Like, I feel better about him than a lot of the people that threw me away after that, because he kind of did it where he was kind of like the phalanx, It
wasn't a bandwagon thing.
Right, exactly. And so in time, that was like that kind of hurt. I remember that hurting me.
Yeah, man.
And
like, I feel like that came out of nowhere,
Yeah, like I think he was pulling away. Like, it's hard for me to remember a lot of this stuff, but I remember him kind of pulling away over time. And then that was kind of him being like the get the point sort of thing, I guess. And I respect that. But in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that's more respectable actually and principled than what I think happened to me after that. And so I've kind of, that experience of being rejected so staunchly by someone and that sticking with you is actually kind of like the more righteous thing that happened to you than what happened to you or me much after that. Wow. And so we've talked about it in so many different ways, and I know people are tired of hearing about the subject, but yeah, that deep level of rejection really sent me over the edge in some way, in a personal way. I was in a really dark space because I had to start thinking about what it said about me. Mm-hmm. And I had to it's important to self-reflect because it could say something about you, right? And often it would, and maybe it does. But I think in working through it in therapy and doing other things and like kind of just getting it out is like, I always wanted to be accepted into a group where I was part of it and I was there. And I had it for a little while and I lost it. And I think that was the bigger loss than like the individuals.
That's a lot of loss. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that level of rejection of like just knowing you're persona non grata really for no reason. I mean, that's the thing that bothers me the most is not that you're persona non grata, but it's like, damn, dude, I didn't even really do anything. So it kind of sucks to be demonized to that level. And it kind of comes with the territory, I guess. And what really brought me back from that and brought me forward was the audience. And I'm not just saying that, like, when you don't hear from anyone that you love or care about, or very few people in the space that want to support you, and in fact, a lot of them have turned on you or wanted to push you away or push you out, it was the people in the trenches that actually are the audience that were the ones that saved me and convinced me to stay. Because I left, right? And I wasn't happy doing what I was doing, but I could have made a lot of easy money doing it. And I just didn't want to sell my soul like that. And so I had to come back knowing that I'm going to have to embrace the rejection of the greater space and make a new space. And we've kind of done that. And maybe it links back, Gene, to what I was saying about people not asking about the construction of Last Stand because of a level of bitterness about it existing at all.
Sure.
And that was my only choice.
Because that'd be giving you credit for being smart after being rejected.
Right, exactly. Right. That I didn't need them, that I actually built more bigger things and made substantially more money than, and built a huge enterprise compared to the things that they think matter. But that was my only choice. People think it's like, oh, this is an amazing thing you built. I get complimented on it a lot and I appreciate that, but it's like, it was either like wither away and die or do this because I couldn't work for anyone. Who was going to hire me? Sony PR was going to hire me, or GameSpot was going to hire me, or Giant Bomb. Like, these people wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole because I was the closest thing to a Trump voter they had ever seen. And it literally is that. And so I built something, but I had to, or I was going to be homeless. And a lot of things went through my mind at that time. Like, should I just go back to college? Like, and I hate college. Like, academia is fucking broken. I don't want to go back to college. I can't believe I even went to college. It feels like it's such a, like, compared to the way that it's described these days, like the way it's described these days, I'm like, damn, dude, it's
scary.
I don't know what the fuck I'd be. I must have gotten out of there like just in the nick of time before it went off. So that wasn't an option. And I kind of I found new people. And we were talking earlier about checking yourself. And that was a lot. I don't think Dustin will mind me saying this. I write everyone individual notes at the end of the year. Seems like a lot of them actually got lost.
I got mine, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You got it? All right, good.
Yeah.
Great. And it's just like it's a nothing. I like writing. I like nice stationery and I like writing things to people. And it's just like, it's fun to get things in the mail. I think a lot of people don't do it anymore. I think that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. It's novel.
But to Dustin, I wrote in his note, just basically like, I'm really trying to understand that I can get close to people again. And that I'm sorry that not that I've kept them at arm's length, but that like I am somewhat distant to everyone as a preemptive protective measure, that I need to be more vulnerable again.
Sure.
As a man, as a friend, as a husband, like whatever the case might be, like I'm injured in all these different ways. So part of the rejection is building off of that and like the scar tissue or whatever, so that it doesn't go down like that again, and understanding that was a very, I don't know. I don't want to say it was a Pyrrhic victory because it wasn't. It was a very painful and unusual fight to begin with. And
if it didn't have to be this way, it wouldn't have.
No way, man.
Yeah.
There's just no way it would have been this way. But you had said it earlier, Brad, and it really connected with me, that what happened with you and Dustin on Frame Trap was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not even in itself a meaningful thing, but rather the excuse in some way to just move on. And I've expressed that many times, that whole situation is kind of the culmination of that. Like, I didn't like really being there. I didn't like the content. I felt like we should be doing something else. And sometimes you do need to be pushed over. So sometimes people think it's like this singularly traumatic experience, when in reality, it would have happened eventually.
Yeah.
So it just happened at that time, but it would have happened. It would have happened some other time.
Compare and contrast the shows right now, look at how the shows are right now, and look at the differing ways that the different companies celebrate their anniversaries, or even present ourselves. It's completely different. You know?
Yeah, and teach their own. But you can see more of what my vision always really was, you know. And I think that it's more in line, and you have to kind of go through that pain to get to the happier place. And I do say I say this with heart, let's say, that I am happier and more content than I've been in a long time. Like, truly, I have a lot of fucking problems. I think everyone that listens to these shows knows that. Like, I am an anxious mess, wound up so tight. I don't sleep particularly well. I think that I'm too dependent on marijuana to regulate my not my mood, but my emotion and stuff like that. I want to unravel from these pills I'm taking and all of these kinds of things. But all of that said, all of the humanity, right, said, it's like I'm still in a better place, no doubt. Because I was drinking a lot, I was smoking a lot, I was a lot more than I do now, and just in an unhealthy relationship, and just escaping from whatever, just trying my hardest to get away. And I don't feel that way anymore, you know. And
I don't know if I've ever been just rejected I don't think I've ever had that experience where someone just told me, I don't want to be your friend anymore. You know, that what painful words to hear, and not even directed at me, you know. And just the concept alone, I don't know. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah. So I appreciate the sentiment, and I want to come out of that shell. Right. So like, that's why I expressed to Dustin in his letter. I was like, I see you, I know who you are. I know what you mean. And like, you are my boy, and my, you know, like,
yeah, Dustin's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't think he's mixed up about it at all, but I know that it's an adjustment to be around someone or to work for someone like me, where it's like and I said this to Brad, I'm like, take my silence as a compliment. Because if you hear from me, usually it's for like some other reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Dustin told me that before I even started working with you. He's like, he just doesn't really get involved with a lot of that stuff unless he has to, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, okay. That's just how he prefers to work. That's fine with me.
It's like the
only time you hear from Colin is when there's a good fight video up.
Oh, that's
totally
true.
Yeah.
And I need to be more active. I need to learn. I need to be more of a leader too. But I like the decentralization because it gives the shows truly different feels. Like, they all truly feel. I mean, for lack of a better term, it's like an early United States, like all these different states, like a federal system where they're just different, but they have some commonality between them. And I think a lot of that is required. I have to kind of stay away, or everything will become sacred symbols, basically. I mean, that's for lack of a better term. But anyway, I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation to this extent. Who have we not heard from yet? Dag?
I haven't heard from Brad or Dagan.
Yeah,
I hear from you.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll go with Brad last, but I want to hear, you know, especially on a job front, but anything, you know, or have you rejected folks?
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on rejection is, hello, darkness, my old friend. I mean, dude, this is, as a professional animator, this is a big part of your life.
Sure.
I mean, this is just the model of your existence in some ways. And you know what, you do develop a sense of humor over. It's not all dark, but if you think about the way it works, right? I'll apply for a job, even 25 years deep into a career and Emmy nominations and all that kind of stuff. I'll apply for a job on a TV series. There'll ultimately be 10 spots for animators and hundreds of people applying for a job. You know, it's not always going to, maybe thousands. It's not always going to go your way, you know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, because then when you get on the job, eventually the floor is going to be yanked out. And maybe you know that going in. For instance, you got a job on this new TV series. It's going to be a season. It's a year's worth of work. It's going to end eventually. You're going to get kicked to the curb, or you're going to get laid off midstream because the budget got pulled. Something happened. There's some flop sweat in the executive offices. We got to cut costs, whatever it's going to be. For it not to end, for it to go on for any meaningful length of time is the oddity. You're going to get rejected. You know what I mean? You're disposable, you know, to a certain degree. And that's the way you kind of got to look at it. Almost like Colin's saying from his thing is like in a defensive way, you know? And it's funny that you bring this up now, Gene, because I did talk about this on the podcast as we closed out 2023, but for a quick recap, 2023 wasn't that bad. I mean, I worked at Nickelodeon for a little while, and then I did a bunch of commercials for 4 or 5 months. So I was gainfully employed for a large chunk of 2023, but it's been tough. You know, the animation industry got hit hard. I think post-COVID, there was a lot of leaning on animation to get us through the thick of COVID, where you couldn't rely on live action production so much and in person. So we had a boom. Animation had a boom during COVID, especially the first half of COVID. And then animation got expensive. And Netflix looked at their books and said, this is getting really costly. Netflix and other companies were also very irresponsible with money, just throwing money at people and stuff like that. So there wasn't a lot of due diligence from the start, but also the writer's strike. And then there was a domino effect. So animation's suffering right now, but in August, I got a call from a dear friend of mine, one of my mentors in animation who I've known for 25 years. And he never calls me. He's in New York. He's got a summer house up in Maine, but he's mostly in New York. And he called me. We usually text or email. So when he calls, I always pick up the phone. I was with the kids at the beach. It was August. And I saw him ringing through. I was like, oh, it's Jack. I gotta pick up. Long story short, he's executive producing a big series for HBO, very successful. I knew he was doing that. I wasn't involved, but the showrunner, the creator of that show, got a second series based on the merits of the first show and how successful it was. We need animators. Are you down? Could start in November, could start in January. Anytime, can you clear your plate? I was like, absolutely, I'm in. I knew who the showrunner was. I knew the children's books it was based off. It's huge. It's going to be a 2-year contract. That's like, for an animator, that's like I could retire. A 2-year contract is like unheard of, right? So super excited. So we're keeping in touch over the course of months. And about 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas, I found out that the director just put a small group together of guys he already knew. I don't know the animation director. I never worked with him before. And he, I was shortlisted, and then eventually I didn't make the cut. And I found out, and it was kind of a gut punch, but you learn how to deal with that stuff. You win some, you lose some. You have to embrace that philosophy because that's just the way it's going to go. Even the best animators don't get everything. That's just life.
Easy come, easy go, right?
Easy come, easy go. And you got to just kind of embrace that energy of, right, let me spin this into a positive. And, glass half full for me, what I've learned over the years, and I'm still learning how to do this better, but it's really a lesson in you learn to lose with class and with elegance, and you deal with defeat like a gentleman. That's really the only way to do it, because I talked about this in a recent Constellation. I don't know if you were on that, Gene, but I know Jaffe was there, where you kind of just learn to be happy for the other guy. And it's like, we all know each other. There may be 1 or 2 degrees of separation, but every animator in this country, I assure you, if I don't know you, I know your best friend. Like, it's pretty, I hate to say it this way, but it's a pretty incestuous business. If you've been around long enough, like, you know each other. And if you don't know each other, you know of each other's reputation. Even working remotely, that it really hasn't changed. Now there's a younger group coming in that I don't know as well. But the established people, it's been a network for a long time. So you gotta uphold your reputation, not just in terms of your craft, but in terms of your personality. You don't want to be that guy who's a bitter loser or a bad loser, right? I certainly was taught better than that. So although it's hard, you kind of suppress it and you put on a happy face and you move forward, right? But I have a good friend, one of my best friends in the industry, my friend Joe. Colin knows him. He was in my wedding party. He's really one of my longest best friends in animation. I don't see him a lot anymore. He's in Jersey, but we worked on a lot of the same stuff together, and he's really one of my dearest friends. He's just a good guy. I was purposely avoiding talking to him, reaching out to him and DMing or texting, because I had a sneaking suspicion he got a spot on this show. And I felt like I couldn't handle the news. So I finally reached out to him on LinkedIn. I just messaged him and, yo, what's going on? How's the family? How are the kids? What are you doing? Just kind of fingers crossed, hoping he doesn't say, I'm working with Jack on the new show and I made the cut and all that kind of stuff. So he's not the bragging type at all. He's way too cool of a guy for that. So it's small talk. And finally I'm like, oh, it's cool. Like, I had this thing lined up with Jack, and, you know, kind of the floor got pulled out at the last minute. Sucks. Like, I was really kind of pinning my hopes to it. Was hoping he could get me through a couple of years so I could stop worrying. Kind of baiting him to say something, and I'm hoping he's saying, oh shit, I'd never even heard of that, you know, but I know he's also in Jack's squad, so I'm suspecting that Jack at least offered him the job too, you know, so, or put him on the short list. And, you know, he come back in typical Joe fashion, trying to soften the blow and mute the blow, you know, and he's like, yeah, like, the way he worded it was, you know, talk about a gentleman. He's like, yeah, like, I know the director. We worked on something for Saturday Night Live a few years ago. I think that probably gave me like the leg up, you know, that he put me on the squad, like I made the cut or whatever type of thing. Like, he said it, he was honest and he told me the truth, but he tried to do it with minimum impact. You know, it was kind of cool. But I gotta tell you, man, it ruined my entire day. I was fucking, I was just like, oh man. And I went downstairs. I'm eating Helene I'm eating dinner with Helene. I don't even know where the kids were. They were out. So it was just me and her. And she saw something was wrong. And I try not to commiserate too much with Helene because she's been dealing with this shit for 25 years. You know, like, I'd rather talk to my mom or dad about it, who are also both very good with helping me deal with it when things aren't going well. But it's just too close to home for her. Like, I don't want to bend her ear too much. I think it could be a bit much. So she sees something wrong and she's like, what's going on? And I could tell, like, she knows I'm going to get into it, you know, but she's doing it anyway. She's doing it lovingly or whatever. And I'm like, look, you know what I feel like? I feel like animation's like a boxing match, right? Getting the shit kicked out of you. 2023 hasn't been the best. Yes, there's highs and lows. It ebbs and flows. You have your successes. You have your slow times. I've been through a couple of bad periods. 2009 was another one. But here's the thing about boxing. I'm getting my ass handed to me. I'm getting pummeled. I retired in my corner. My manager's giving me the bottle of water, right? Stitches, got the Q-tip out. He's sewing up my wounds. I got the water bottle. I'm spitting in the bucket, getting the massage, getting the pep talk to get back out there. But while that's happening, the other boxer's coming and beating the shit out of me during that 30 seconds where I'm trying to take that respite between rounds. You know, that's what I feel like working in animation has been like. That's what it feels like when things aren't going good. It could be relentless, but I don't think that's just my experience. I think that's just anybody that does anything or lives any kind of life, when it feels like you're getting kicked when you're down. You know what I mean? It's like, God, can I just steel myself so I could get back in and fight another round? But the boxer's allowed to come over and just kind of like blast you with punches while you're trying to take that one rest, you know, before the bell rings again. So that's my story of Rejection. But, you know, it could go now. I'm always singing the sob story, but, you know, things could go well for 8-9 years at a time. You know what I mean? You roll from production to production. I have guys like Jack who think of me for things. So a lot of the times things go really well too. But I think if you work in this industry, you know, I see it. I tell Colin this sometimes. I see it with my son. I think Helene sees what I've gone through in animation, and she's like, I understand you love it, but you hate the way the industry works so much. It's always been a battle for you because you're very type A. You're very organized. You don't like to take risks. You want to know where your next paycheck's coming from. And my son, I think my daughter's free and clear of it. I think my daughter's probably going to go into advertising, something more lucrative and something a little more stable and something where she could make some real money. But my son, I could already see it. Like, he even talks about going to school at, you know, in Toronto and stuff like that. It horrifies Helene. But I just tell him, I tell anybody, if you're going to go into it, you have to know that this is just the way it works. Yeah. You know, I think it's the entertainment industry. I think
media and entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. Media. Yeah. That's a great way to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, and, you know, it's not, you know, we're very blue collar compared to, you know, if I was a television writer and I was making $25,000 a week, right? Then, all right, you know, I'm off for a few months. No big deal. Right. Or if I'm a live action, you know, if I'm an actor getting meaningful work and I'm in the rotation and I'm kind of in the director's ear and, you know, I'm at least somewhat of a, not even a hot commodity, but if I'm lukewarm, I'm going to be all right. You know, animation's a blue collar thing. And, you know, it's very much like working construction. I had a friend who worked construction in the downtimes and then animated when he could, and then in the down. So he did both. He did sort of the construction model / animation model on both things, and he kind of supplemented one with the other, which I always thought was so interesting. But that's just the way it is. I think you get to deal with rejection. I do think it builds character, and I think you learn not to take it personally. I'll tell you what's funny though. You guys talking about mentees and how that's a bad idea. The 3 or 4 people in my career that I could consider real proteges, right? That I just took under my wing in some form, even if it wasn't a demonstrative thing, even if it's just something that just kind of happened. Like I could see this person's modeling their career or their style or their approach to things after me. The 3 or 4 people, dude, are all so fucking successful, even though they're like 10 years my junior. One's a creative development executive, at a pretty big place. One's a creative director somewhere. One's a character designer at Disney that's just so talented that I think he's like one of the truly unfireable dudes, like surpassed me in talent 10 times over, even though he's a lot younger. So that's why proteges are a bad idea, because they're bad for your ego.
Yeah, you don't want to pass.
Yeah, definitely.
I taught you everything I know. Like, why am I asking you for a job?
I think Dagan actually like punched right through my own anxiety. But yeah, that could
Totally.
be.
But yeah, dude, that's.
But it hasn't happened though. No one's better than me. So
Right on. I love that level of confidence personally.
You should. You know where I learned the confidence? From Kanye.
Yeah. He does have that level of. It's kind of been his undoing in some sense, I think. But
it has been. But like that level of ultra confidence, like trickled down to me, where I was able to kind of internalize a lot of that, and that's how I learned to say, yeah, I might be one of the better ones out there. Don't worry about it.
Brad, where are you on the on the topic of rejection? Where does your mind go with this?
I'm especially interested in hearing about Brad, because first of all, let me first of all speak on Brad's background as a beauty school student.
Oh,
and it was interesting to see so many people say, "Oh, I never knew Brad did that." I was like you fake fans.
Fake fans.
Like I only just found out who Brad was like a couple months ago, and even I knew that.
I was sad to actually see that people had been. Some people said Brad, like, "Oh, I didn't know anything. I've listened to Brad for 8 years and only learned these things about him." I'm like, I don't understand how you can how that can never have come up.
It did, since as I talked about it a few times, and in fact, I cut
you cut Huber's
hair, like on a stream, and I talked about my career and stuff like that. But I did. I was a hairstylist for like 4 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Then I moved on to games.
Yeah, but I was interested because Brad was talking about in his first episode about how he's always surrounded by all these women, and it's an interesting space to be for a straight man. And I related to that because as folks know, and Brad, I don't know if you knew or heard, but I used to be a beauty pageant judge, so that was another part where I'm like in this space where I'm a straight guy in this space, and it's very awkward and strange. But I think I bring that up only to say that a lot of people say, well, how can you ask her out? Isn't she out of your league? And aren't you afraid of rejection? I think the fact that I was always surrounded by like extremely beautiful people, like you, as a straight guy, right, who's attracted to women, you can't be attracted to every single woman out there,
Right.
Like that's what you quickly learn, that when you're surrounded by beauty queens, like it is not like feasible or smart to be attracted to all of them. Like you have no time, you don't have no energy. So as a person, as a horny guy, you learn to moderate that, and then you start to think, okay, well, these are just regular people, and so that was able to kind of like normalize like really beautiful people for me. So I stopped being worried about being rejected by beautiful people, because as soon as I see them, I'm just like, you're just another person. So it's fine.
Yeah, and I guess just something with rejection for me nowadays, and we'll get to how I got to this point, is it's just like, whatever. We'll just go on to the next one. It's like that Seinfeld episode, you probably know, Colin, where he's like dating someone and they break up, And she's like, "You're not upset?" And he's like, "Nah,
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
find another one."
Yeah, that was like I think
That's so
that was
generic.
supposed to be like a meta joke about the show, right? It was like
Yeah,
how he
something
always has
like
a different
that.
girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "I'll find another one." Yeah, something like that. So
I remember that episode. You guys remember Seinfeld episodes so well. I don't understand how you.
Well,
guys
because
do that.
There's so
do you just
many.
watch this shit like over and over again?
Dude,
or
the
do you-
sad
do you
thing
have
is
a-
that I probably haven't watched Seinfeld in more than 10 years at this point.
That's crazy.
And
yeah, I
Wow.
just think certain moments stick out.
well,
for
I'm
me.
just obsessed with it from the point where, and I've said this before, like I had a schedule in college where I would try to work it out so that I could watch Seinfeld on US, or it was on USA 6 and 6:30. Oh no, TBS 6 and 6:30, then the local station at 7, and then it was on again at 11 at night on the local
Right.
station, and I would watch
Right.
it every day. So for years, and I was indoctrinated by Seinfeld. It was completely, and it's not.
Yeah, I did watch Seinfeld every day too, but I just don't remember all of it. But I guess I watched it like during the 90s too. So
Yeah, I was. I don't know why. It's just it always touched me in that way. But anyway.
anyway, sorry, Brad.
Yeah, Brad. Sorry. Yeah.
In terms of like relationship rejections, I've been on both sides. Maybe I won't be as into it or something like that, or the person I'm into isn't into it as much. So I've been both ways and all of that. So I mean, it sucks every time. Like when you're letting someone down, it doesn't feel good, but you have to do it.
Totally.
And when you're receiving, of course, it doesn't feel good, but you just get better at it as time goes on. You experience it more. Rejection stuff I've had through like work and stuff like that. Like I remember very early in my hairstyling thing, like when you're like very early learning and you're like doing your first haircuts, like no one's doing good haircuts at like schools or anything like that. If you're having students do cuts, like no one's doing good haircuts. And I just do haircut and I just be like, oh, I fucking hate that haircut or something like that. I feel bad that I gave him that haircut. I wish I could have done better, something like that. But also, as you just do it more and more, you get more comfortable with it and it gets better along. But
when you're training for this, you don't use real people to cut their hair, right?
at a level you do, yes. When you very
That's
first
fucking
start,
hilarious.
you do not. Yeah. When you very first start, you do not. But then you get real clients, you get real people coming in,
Yeah.
and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, because I remember I
Here we go.
had an ex that used to go to a school because it was like cheap, right?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
cheap.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cheap. So you can get like color done if you want or something like that.
Yeah, that's
or
cool.
cut.
But yeah, that's a good. Yeah, you got to kind of learn that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
remember
you-
when I was getting my surgery for cancer and like a bunch of students walked in and I looked at the doctor. I was like, they're just like watching, right? They're not going to like, and she was like,
Yeah.
don't worry. I was like, okay, this is like a fucking barber school or anything where like the graduate students will just try me out for a bit, you know?
Mhm. Especially because hairdressing is definitely more than just you cutting their hair. It's you making them comfortable, like having a good conversation with them. There's so much more that goes into all of that. And I definitely had to learn to adapt to a lot of that because I'm a very usually quiet and shy person usually, but I definitely had to step out of my comfort zone for all of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I would have not grown at all.
Do you get trained in small talk?
No, not really.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, that would be
I just
interesting if there was
learned
a
by-
class about that. That would be so interesting.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I just learned by watching others kind of see how they did it. Because like when you're doing like early stuff, a lot of your clients are older women, a lot of them, like older ladies coming in, and a lot of the girls are very good with like older women. So I would just kind of like understand what they did. And I would do like, so I would give like, I found like little talents that make them like me over the other girls. Like I would give like the best like shampoo, like the head scratch, because I have like stronger hands than them and all that stuff. And like massage their hands too, like a little stronger. So they always really like that. It was just a lot about me finding little things that I could do that they couldn't, even though I might be outclassed in many other ways. But also, when I left that, I wanted to do game stuff. And I remember applying to Blizzard, who is like very close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'll just be down to be like a GM kind of thing like that. Immediate rejection. Nope. Did it like 2 more times. Immediate rejection. I was like, okay, dude, this kind of sucks. And I just remember like emailing gaming companies and stuff, like trying to find any small like beginner task that I could do. And they're always like, well, you need 2 years of experience in this shit and this thing. which I didn't have, and I would just apply anyways, and I didn't get anything.
That's good. That you should apply. Those minimum requirements shit is bullshit. Don't listen to it.
It might be better now. This was like, like the earlier 2000s kind of stuff like that. So I don't know if people seem more cool about not making you have college requirements for a lot of stuff like that, like specific degrees or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But I dealt with like a lot of that. And finally, my friend Mike Huber, who was working at Game Trailers, eventually got me a job there. So then that was there, which was great. But then that came with new rejections of me being the new guy, me having to learn their kind of things and trying to do something and then just being like, it's not good enough kind of thing. Like my writing or stuff, it needs work. So just me learning to deal with that. I guess it's just been something that's happened to me my whole life is rejection is pretty normal for me. And I just have to work up from that kind of thing. Because I feel like I'm not naturally good at anything right away. I have to usually put in some effort to it. But when I do, I get pretty good at it. And I feel very confident in a lot of ways about what I do now in that sense. Like when I first started writing, dude, my editor just tear me to shreds. Just like, what is this? But then, after years and years and just practicing, less notes, eventually like comments saying like, really good job. You're doing really good here. I love this whole thing.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess it's just been kind of like a constant battle. If anything I do is just learning that.
Sounds like you dealt with rejection and criticism in a healthy way.
Sometimes better than others. Yeah. I feel like I could get mad. I'll be mad about something, but I'll be over it in 10 minutes. And I'm like, all right, let's get
You're from Southern California, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would explain like, the SoCal chill, just like whatever.
Yeah. That's a thing.
I guess. And I've always been like, I got it a lot better than many other people. So I can't get too upset about a lot of that stuff. So
yeah, that's fair enough.
But
the SoCal chill thing is really real because like I'm from like the Pacific Islands and we were like super chill there. And then so when I moved to California and I saw how chill people there were, I was like, oh, it's a similar. It's less chill, but it's still pretty chill here.
Yeah,
I agree. Coming out from living in New York and then going to school in Boston and then living in San Francisco was markedly different, and I noticed the difference in the people. The people are not the problem. Well, some of them are. But
some of them definitely are.
But
I like what Brad said about getting mad too. Like, I think you have to. I used to think it was bad, but you have to allow yourself to get mad. You can't you just can't stay mad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a human emotion. You're gonna feel that,
Sometimes
just don't stay there.
Out.
Yeah,
just
get it
out for
out.
a couple minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And you're like, okay.
I love that.
Adjust.
Yeah. That's something I've actually had to learn. So that's why, like, when I get into arguments at work, I might raise my voice, but it's for a really short time, and it's not to anyone. I'm just like letting it out myself, and I'm ranting to someone. And I have to like assure them, like, I'm not mad at you. I promise I'm not mad at you.
I've definitely had to do that also.
Huh?
I have the same thing where I've had to get.
I'm not mad at you.
I'm not mad at you. Actually, mad at you though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel? Are you satisfied, Gene?
Sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this was fun. This was a great conversation. Good introduction to Brad, having him in the fold. I'm amped for you and amped for you to be here and excited to see what you do with your show. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us. You'll be on probably every month or so, I think.
Yeah. Whenever you guys need me.
Yeah. I want to give you as little to do as possible so you can just play games and focus on the one thing we need you to do and have, of course, all the free time in the world to undertake your other endeavors. You're streaming on Twitch, which is good.
Yes, I just started. Yeah, just for fun.
Cool.
Elden Ring.
Yeah, playing Elden Ring. I'll play Final 7 Remake soon.
Awesome.
That Rebirth's coming up.
Yeah, I'm going to start playing it. I think I want to do a show on it. I don't know if it'll be on Sacred Plus or probably make more sense on your show, really. But like going over it again.
Yeah.
And Integrate. You never play Integrate, right?
Right. That's right. So I'm going to play the Integrate version. Dig, you can get in on that if you want.
I may do that.
Anyone who's down can be on it.
I actually have reinstalled Remake too I'm prepping for the Rebirth.
It's too soon. I want to play I want to do a couple things. I'll get to it in February.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna wait till like the end of the month or probably early
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
Right now I'm playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Nice. Yeah, that comes out soon, right? Or is that already out? No, that comes out.
End of the month, so it's
Nice.
3 weeks from now.
Cool. And
So
you have The
still
Last of
pretty
Us,
early.
right? You have The Last of Us on PS5?
Yes, I actually do have Last of Us Part 2 on PS5
Nice.
as well. That is well, I think I can say it. It's a fun game because we
Yeah, I
already
mean
know.
everyone knows. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing the new mode in that. So, and maybe getting Dagan to play that too, and we can cover that as
That'll
well
be
at some
fun.
point. But well, Brad, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us today, and everyone go check out Summon Sign and follow him on Twitter and support him on Twitch and do all those kinds of things. And thank you for the outpouring of support towards him because I think that it really means a lot.
Thank you, everybody. It's been
Mhm.
crazy amount of support.
Yeah, I'm
Everyone's been super nice at Last Stand.
Mhm.
good.
It's kind of unreal.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear it. I'm thrilled to see it. I hope that our collaboration continues to grow. And yeah, I'm amped about the first episode. But take it easy. Let's not do better than Sacred Symbols. Gene, good to see you, my friend. Happy New Year to you. This is the cutoff. I won't say it to you again. And yeah, keep an eye out for your package. We'll discuss it next time you're on the show.
I actually just got it while we were talking, so I'm going to go
no
downstairs. and
way.
get it
Oh,
right
exciting.
now.
Okay, cool. Wow, it arrived already. Cool. So enjoy
Yeah.
that. And thank you again for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me. As people know, this is actually my favorite program on Last Stand Media, at least to be on, because it's just so fun and relaxing. And
Cool.
I just think that I think it's fun that this is the first time I get to talk to Brad too. I'm so excited to see him. One of my favorite things to see in the Brad discourse is how happy people are that he's here because he actually plays games.
Yeah, exactly.
like he plays like every game, you know,
Right.
and that's not something that most of us do here at LSM, except me probably. It's probably because I'm the only one that like gets like regular review codes regularly. Well, I guess Maddie too. So
Yeah, the broadness of, I would say I play a lot of games, but very narrowly.
Yes.
Brad plays even more than I would say I do, and plays much more broadly. So it'll be interesting. And you'll be on Summon Sign in the weeks to come, no doubt. And then, Dag, goodbye to you. Thank you for taking the time. Steamboat Willie boy.
My
Muffin,
pleasure.
as Jaffe calls you.
AKA Muffin. I
Yeah.
forgot
I
about
was actually
Muffin.
starting to get used to that when he just said muffin casually.
Yeah.
It was starting to become normal.
Quickly reminded me. Happy New Year, I wanted to say. Brad doesn't know the story. I have a lot of anxiety over saying Happy New Year because I once told a neighbor Happy New Year in March. And he laughed.
Wow.
Didn't say it back, laughed, and went back in his house. I mean, in all fairness, in the Northeast,
Chinese
you go
New
into
Year?
hibernation mode after the holiday. You don't see each other.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like that first day where he was like coming out and cleaning his garage or whatever. And I was like, Happy New Year. And he just laughed and turned around. I didn't get a Happy New Year back.
Yeah, it's unacceptable at that
So
point.
I've always
It's
been.
ridiculous.
Well, he's probably thinking that you were just joking, like, Dagan,
That
Crazy
jokester.
Dagan.
Yeah. That
what a
old
comedian. Happy New Year in March.
It looks like we're expecting bad weather here because
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
snow.
It's going to
Yeah.
be shitty tomorrow.
6 inches. or
yeah,
something.
rough weather ahead.
Damn.
I got a thing from
Yeah.
Xfinity, so we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes. But all right, well, appreciate you boys. We'll get together again soon. I wrote down a note for Micah. I'll email her to get us together again for Star Wars in the weeks
Oh,
or
that'd
months
be
to come.
nice.
That will be fun, and we can do a whole episode about that.
Oh,
But-
yeah.
I love
But
that.
in the meantime, and I want to do more podcasts on Constellation. I was going to include it in the letter introducing Summon Sign, but I just thought it was distracting. I want to do more episodes of Constellation where we go see a movie or we go do something and then circulate the conversation around that. Very similar to what we did with the wedding, where it's like the wedding is kind of the focal point, but it's things about the wedding or things having to do with weddings or whatever. So could we do that with film and TV and other things too? I think we could.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Book club
100%.
type thing.
Yeah,
would be fun.
yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even games,
Like-
right? I mean,
Yeah,
we can do that too.
and my friends Wooly and Super Eye Patch Wolf, they just started like a book club type podcast too, and that's doing well too. So I think
That's cool.
it's a good idea.
Yeah. I love it.
All right, my friends. Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you out there. Thank you for your love,
Oh my
kindness, and
god, I
support.
think I'm gonna watch Star Wars again.
Oh, well, do what you got to do, my friend.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/lastdaymedia. Lastdaymedia.store for merch. Until next time, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.